What is up, Internet Basketball Junkies? I'm here with my good friend, Todd Maynard. Todd's a former college roommate of mine, a former college basketball teammate. He's a basketball coach. He's an administrator, and he's one of the best high school basketball program builders that I've ever come across. Todd, hey, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us.
Thanks, Coach Hackett, man. I appreciate that and appreciate those kind words. And I don't know if you mean all of it, but I definitely appreciate it.
Hey, Todd, you've lived a very interesting life. I've got a firsthand look at a lot of the things that have happened to you and for you in your life. And the first thing I want to ask you is somehow you've managed to almost get your doctorate in business studies. Is that correct? Is it business that you're studying?
Yeah, I'm doing my DBA right now. It's a doctorate in business administration. I just recently took the job at where we played at Kentucky Christian University and took the Dean of Business there for the School of Business and Leadership. And, that's one of those things that I need to get also to be a dean. So I'm doing that, believe it or not. I know the first time we met up in the dorm room, you looked at me and you said, I don't know if you'll graduate or not, but here we are now. So as I've gotten a little bit older, I got a little bit more serious about my academics.
Well, you told me that you're maybe, a year away from getting your doctorate. And I know things changed, but when you were an 18-year-old kid, I definitely wouldn't have seen you becoming a doctorate in any subject. I know things change and we mature as people, but that's an awesome achievement to take your education to that level. And I don't know what I'll do if you try to force me to call you Dr. Maynard.
Yeah, that's true. Well, here's my philosophy, Hack, is I don't believe you're truly a doctor unless you write prescriptions. So it's all good. You don't have to call me Dr. Maynard or anything when that happens.
Hey, if I did all that schooling, I'd be sure to make people call me a doctor. That make my time be worth it from doing all those papers and all that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I guess you could use it to your advantage if you're calling in somewhere and use it and say you're Dr. Maynard. But yeah, it's a good accomplishment, and to come from where I came from, and looking to compete for my family, it's one of those things where if I didn't have a place like KCU and have good friends, and not to get into the cheesy and fluffiness of it, but just to have good people around me that I've seen that were successful. But even going somewhere, a smaller school like KCU had great benefits for me and helped me get my bachelor's degree. And, and then I went to Liberty and got my master's, and I got my postmaster's from Salem. And, it's kind of like, this is the next step. Let's continue to, go as far as you can go. And I think that's what you always need to continue to do, is just continue to compete for your family, compete for your life.
So I've made a business out of basketball, which you're well aware of, and you kind of set me on that track a little bit, to be honest. Todd, you're kind of the initial guinea pig for my signature product, which is Powerhouse program building. So if anybody out there is not familiar with Powerhouse program building, this is a resource that I put together that really helps coaches build the program of their dreams, where they can establish a culture, where they can do all the off-court things that they'd want to do to build a successful program. It has some X's and O's in it, but it's mostly program building concepts of culture and fundraising and working with the administrators and things of that nature. But the origins of Powerhouse program building came back to you, and they came back to you because you were in the market for trying to get your first head coaching job. You were aware that I had this coaching portfolio that I used to go into my own interviews. And I let you borrow my structure here so that you could make your own interview portfolio. So you went into an interview. I believe it helped you get your first job, at least to a little extent. But you used the materials. You were successful with it. And then you came back to me and you told me, hey, you should market this to people. There's so many people out there that could use this. And I thought to myself, wow, I put all this hard work into this thing. I'm not going to give away the secret sauce. And that was kind of the first time in my mind that I ever thought about, maybe monetizing this information. You really put that seed in my head. So tell me a little bit about your origins, with the Powerhouse program building materials?
Well, it's been a great resource for me, even though that we know each other. But if we didn't, this would be good information and good for anybody to take who's, there's a lot of coaches out there that are looking for high school head coaching positions, and they're hard to get in this climate. I mean, there's a lot of politics and things. There's a lot of different things. But I believe that with this Powerhouse program that you've built, it helps coaches to kind of set their way apart from everybody else. If it comes down to that, if somebody looks at a professional portfolio, it's helped me along the way too, even with opportunities I had. My first head coaching job at Tulsa High School, it helped me with that. And then I went on to St. Joe, and, my time at St. Joe too, just building a culture and implementing some of the resources that you have. It gave me other opportunities that people see. And I always believe that you work hard where you're at, and people are going to notice that. And, it's been great. And it's also provided me an opportunity to, I turned down 2 premium jobs in our area that I actually turned down, but they offered me head coaching positions for those as well. So it's a great resource. I'm glad you are doing well with it, but I haven't seen any commission checks come in yet. So I'll be looking for those in the mail, Hack.
Well, I just didn't know your royalty percentage, but I can send that out right away. But yeah, I firmly believe in, coaches looking to get a coaching job. There's kind of 3 things that really matter. And 1 is a coaching portfolio. 2 is your references, and 3 are your interview skills. But particularly for coaches that don't have any head coaching experience, your portfolio can become an amazing tool. Once you become a head coach, your track record kind of speaks for itself. But before you have a track record, you can really sell a vision. And I think an interview portfolio can help you do that. But I think the biggest thing that creating your own interview portfolio, something along the lines of this Powerhouse program building, is providing yourself with crystal clarity on the things that you want to do once you're coaching. Because if you don't really have a concrete plan in place, once you get a head coaching job, your head's just going to be spinning because there's so many things that you need to do right away. So to kind of have clarity on that, and then, by putting it in writing, you're able to articulate those thoughts to an interview committee. So it's not only making an impression on an interview committee when you put it in their hands, but it's helping you articulate the things that you've put down on paper. So I really appreciate your encouragement on bringing this product to market. And, any success that you've had in your coaching career, if I can be 1% of that from letting you see these materials, I'd take it, because you've had a tremendous amount of success, even though you're still relatively young here.
Yeah, appreciate that, man.
Hey, looking across your career and your life, you've kind of consistently stepped into situations that needed leadership. What's kind of drawn you to responsibility, just responsibility in general, when it could have been easier to do other things? And I'm talking about your life, and I'm talking about your coaching career.
When I sit back and reflect a little bit, Hack, I think a lot about just in general that I've always been a builder at heart, and I think that goes back to probably my early days and growing up. I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia, and I was a kid to 2 parents who were addicted to drugs and alcohol. They lost their battle with that, so I kind of seen that firsthand, and not to share a sob story, but when I was 10 years old, my mother passed away on my birthday. So that was always challenging. And I had a older brother, I had a younger brother and younger sister, and my younger brother Chad and younger sister Kayla, we went into a adopted home that didn't treat us very well and didn't treat us very good. So even during those times, I always wanted to be something. I always wanted to build myself to something. And I think that's a lot of the times some of the jobs that I've taken on is something that was not very good, didn't have a good foundation, a struggling program. and I wanted to go in there and believe in myself and implement good culture, good buy-in, and implement everything that I've learned. And it's one of those things. It's been great, and it's been a process. And I've had opportunities to go to well-established basketball programs, but I've always kind of choose to climb the mountain, if you will. So when I took the Tulsa job, it was really a job that nobody wanted. Nobody wanted it at all, and I decided to get something. I was an assistant coach at Spring Valley High School before I took that job, and it had great tradition, but there wasn't very many applicants for the job, and I was crazy enough to do it, and it was awesome. The kids were hard-nosed kids, and we had a lot of success there. And then it helped me take the St. Joe job, which was another job that the year before I think they won one ball game. So it was a little bit closer to home. So I made a family decision. I probably would have stayed at Tulsa my whole entire career. I really enjoyed that, but it led me to St. Joe, and it was another build there, and we had a lot of success there as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and I look forward to getting into the weeds a little bit with your life growing up later in the interview. But the bottom line is you've had plenty enough in your life to quit, and you've decided not to quit. You've decided to do the opposite of quitting, which is get yourself in leadership positions and influence people. The influence that you didn't have in your household growing up, you've decided to try to give that to other people in a variety of ways. So I look forward to kind of unpacking that with you a little bit later on. But I'm kind of interested in switching gears a little bit, because you've been a sub-varsity coach at the high school level. You've been a varsity coach at the high school level. I believe you've coached at the middle school level. You've been an athletic director. You're now a college basketball assistant coach. You're a dean of the School of Business and Leadership. You've taken on a lot of different roles at a lot of different levels of organization. What kind of skills do you think carry across all of those roles that you've had?
Well, I think what's helped me in my blended experience of all of them is, one, I think you got to develop your communication skills. I think that's one of the things that, a young person or a young coach or anybody in general, if they can build those skills, dive into the books. And that's one of the things that I learned from you, Hack, and you always recommend me good books to read and things. And I just always had a passion and desire to continue to learn. And that's one of the things that I try to teach my students, my players now, is you got to enhance those skills and be able to communicate effectively. So whenever you go for jobs or you're trying to implement anything, that you have those type of skills. And another thing I believe in is building relationships, and you got to be able to build relationships with folks and get buy-in from them, so they share into the vision of what you want to do. But I think that's the main thing, and that you need to do. And keep on developing your leadership skills too. And I think that's one of the things that we always tell people. You hear that coaches say it all the time, Hack, is, hey, be a leader, be a leader. But do we really show people how to lead? And as coaches, we need to show young people and just how to build those leadership skills, and not just tell them to be a leader, because sometimes they don't know. Leadership and communication is a skill, just like basketball, that you can learn.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up me recommending books to you and reading. When I think about my life in general, all the times that I've made tremendous progress in my life, I feel like it's been fueled by reading. It's the idea generation. It's the grasping new concepts. It's connecting ideas. And kind of all the times that I feel like I was kind of stalled or not making as much progress as I wanted to were times in my life where I wasn't reading as much. So I truly believe in reading as just a multifunctional skill that brings progress into a life, from being open to ideas, processing new ideas, and things like that. But talking about these roles that you've had, you've coached at different levels. You've been an athletic director. Which one of the roles that you've had has stressed you the most, or stretched you in terms of your skill set?
Well, I think a lot of it might have been the athletic director. That's a job. It's a lot. Coaching's a lot, but when you have a dual role when you coach and you're an AD, it's a lot. So that stretched you because a lot of people don't see behind the scenes of what ADs have to do. And I was fortunate enough to do that for 4 years. I really enjoyed it because it's coaching as well. You're just coaching a bigger team. So you're dealing with a lot of coaches as well. So anytime, as you know, there's all type of what I call Baskin Robbins 31 flavors, man. There's a lot of coaches out there and they have different mindsets, different egos, and it's just being able to deal with people in that sense. And another thing is just hiring the right folks. That was one of the things is you wanted to hire program people instead of just hobby coaches. You want to hire program coaches, and sometimes that was difficult to do depending on the sport. But I think that was probably the one that was the kind of the most stressful, if you will, and stretched me the most. But you got to deal with parents, you got to deal with different things. But it was very rewarding, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think from a personal development standpoint, not being comfortable and being able to take on all these different roles. You started in coaching as a middle school coach, I believe. That's a lot different than a varsity head coach. Coaching at a smaller school versus a bigger school, getting into being an athletic director, going from high school to college. You've never shied away from taking on a challenge. And I think that would be evident in your skill sets, that you're developing different skill sets through these different roles that you've had throughout your life. I'm pretty interested because you're back at Kentucky Christian University. This is where we met as individuals. You're an assistant basketball coach there. What made this opportunity feel like the right time to take the next step for you and jump from high school into college coaching?
Well, it's something that I've always been passionate about. And I'm not an old man, but I'm not a spring chicken anymore either. So it was one of those things where, the opportunity presented itself. I've always looked at Kentucky Christian University and checked things out with them just because it was a special place for me. It was a place that I believe that provided me an opportunity to raise my brother and sister. And it's just always had a special place in my heart. And when I seen the Dean of Business job come available, and something I'm passionate about is business, that I looked into it, and I got a hold of Coach Charlie Pack, who's the head coach at Kentucky Christian University now. And I reached out to him and said, hey, if this is an opportunity that I decide to take this, it was an opportunity as an alumnus to maybe get on staff. And it all worked out. The stars aligned, if you will. And, it was one of those things, and it's great to be back. And, I didn't know. It's a little bit strange, Hack. I know you probably haven't been to KCU in a long time. There's not a whole lot that's changed, but it's a little bit weird being back in a professional role there at Kentucky Christian for sure. Just looking out the window and just knowing that I sometimes terrorize that campus, if you will. But it's been really, really cool. And what I love about it is there's a lot of people who have a shared vision and a greater purpose. And I love that. And they have a lot of growth mindset, and there's a lot of good things happening right now too. So that's kind of how that evolved. And but I will say it was tough leaving St. Joe. We built a great program, and we were one of the favorites to win the state championship this year. Hopefully they still do that. I still have two of my assistants who are current assistants on the team. So I believe you leave it better than you found it. But if you find an opportunity and to keep on advancing, you should definitely do that.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing more about your story and more about your life. But I think between the two of us, we can teach our audience a little something about transition offense. I got to watch a few of your teams through the years, and I thought the thing that stood out to me was your emphasis on transition offense. Tell me a little bit about your transition offense system that you used when you were the head coach of at high school basketball levels. I believe it was a 4-out break. Is that correct, Coach?
It was 4-out break. We used we had a rim runner, the 5-man. The 4 and the 5 were interchangeable, depending on who got the rebound, and our 1s, 2s, and 3s were as well. So, the 5 was a rim sprinter. Our 2s and 3s, they would get wide in the lanes and get to the corners. And, our 1 would, what we always try to teach our 1 to do is, 1, to always scan the floor. The 1 should always see 9 players, hopefully at all time, and, make good reads, make good decisions. But it gets them out there playing with pace and purpose. And I really enjoyed that. Coach Schaus ran a lot of this as well when we were in college. So I'm a big Coach Schaus fan, as you know, and I know you are as well. And I really dove into Coach D'Antoni at Marshall University and looked at that, and they run a lot of similar things. And I just kind of fell in love with it. And it's been fun to coach. It's been fun for the players to, run. And, I find it to be extremely effective for what we did, and we had the personnel to do it.
Yeah, I've been a big transition offense guy in my coaching career. I've used a 4-out break. I've used a 5-out break. They both have their benefits, but I thought the biggest benefit of a 4-out break, like what we're looking at right now and what you described, was the element of the quick strike attack, the ability to kick the ball up the sideline and get a shot or attack the basket, the ability to hit your rim runner, sprint in the rim. There's benefits to a 5-out break, which are a lot of about flow and pace, where you see it a lot in the NBA, where these NBA teams nowadays are using a lot of 5-out transition offense. And then they have series of plays that work off of a pistols or a reversal through the 5-man that's trailing. But this 4-out break gives you the opportunity to advance the ball quickly, to score back on teams that once they got another bucket. I always felt like that was a huge thing, was if your defense kind of broke and you gave up a bucket, to score back on the other team right away was a very deflating thing for the opponent, where they felt like they might have had to work real hard to get a bucket, and then boom, 5 seconds later, you're putting 2 points or 3 points up on the scoreboard. In thinking about this kind of transition break system, what's the most important element, and I mean position on the floor? What's the key? Who's the key guy in making this system work here, Coach?
Well, one of the things that we've always believed in is, one, you got to have good floor spacing and ball movement. So there's organization to it. The main thing is the 2s and 3s are getting to the corners. And even if they come down on the same side after we rebound it, because it's not always going to be a perfect world in that diagram right there that we have up. So, there's ways to do that. And one of the things that I've started doing probably the last 4 years is I never made our guys cross the floor. I want them to go straight and get down as fast as they can. So if the 2 and 3 are in the same on the same side, the 2 is going to push the 3 to the corner, and if the 1's going there, if he doesn't, it goes into a drag screen, or you hit the trail. But if he doesn't do that, that wing can just cut through the wing and fill the corner over there, and your 2 can come up the rail, and it could be a dribble handoff into a drag screen, or you can go into some zoom action out of that. But I think the biggest thing is floor spacing, ball movement. And one of the other things is we don't want our guys dribbling sideways to sideways. We really want them hunting the paint and what we call paint touches. We want to get a lot of paint touches, because good things happen whenever you can beat one and get into the paint. And if you're familiar with Steve Nash, he made a living out of that. That probably was around 85% of his assists over his career was when he was getting into the paint. But and we want our guys to make good reads and decisions and shoot the best shots possible. So we want to play fast, but we want to race the ball fast, and not just get fast shot, but get fast, good shots.
Yeah, the biggest thing in a transition offense I love is just the pressure it takes off your half-court offense. Good defensive teams, good opponents, if it's 5-on-5 and you've got to create your advantage out of thin air, that's tough basketball against a good defensive team. But when you introduce this element of transition offense where you're pushing the pace off of makes and misses, there's not as many possessions that are just 5-on-5 neutral possessions. You're starting with the opportunity to usually have some kind of advantage if you're really getting out and running the right way. Obviously, I think the point guard is the most important person in the break, and they need everybody working together. But if you don't have a good point guard, it's going to be harder to find those advantages. So you need to get your point guard getting deeper up the sideline into an outlet box, getting the ball quickly, getting their head up the court, deciding to pitch it ahead, deciding to change sides of the court. Without a point guard, I think your transition offense is never going to really reach its peak without a point guard that really can navigate that. So your rim runner, I've played in offensive systems that have just had manufactured rim runners, and you can put a shorter guy there. You can put a guy that can't catch. All you got to do is to train them to sprint down that seam of the court as hard as they can, and that's doing their job. It's an awesome experience to throw that 1-to-5 pass in a transition break and score a bucket there. And really all it takes is effort. So I know playing for my dad, playing for Coach Schaus, we've been able to be really successful in finding people, even if they aren't big monsters, to play that 5 spot, to just sprint the court and keep pressure on the defense. So I'd like to roll some clips here, Coach, of just a YouTube video that I have that's going to demonstrate primary break. And while that plays, we'll just keep talking a little bit here about transition offense. How does that sound?
That sounds good. And what I wanted to tell you too is I can still visualize Bucko Gully sprinting the 5-man and you hitting him in college there. And the reason I know that is because I was sitting over there on the bench and I had a great view at it. So I can still see that in my mind.
Yeah, I feel like I was a point guard, and I feel like I had tremendous connection with a lot of these people, these players through the years of being able to read them, being able to see that advantage and make that pitch ahead 1-to-5. And as you know, I recently got my college game film digitized, so I've been able to watch a game or two. And I found even a couple clips in just the games of making that 1-to-5 pass and running this break, which were great memories to have. What would you say in running a transition offense is your kind of non-negotiables?
Well, the one thing is non-negotiable is you got to run hard. That's the big thing. A lot of times you see guys are just jogging up, but you really got to sprint the floor and get to the, like I said, get to the corners to create that space to drag the defense. So that's the first thing is, guys have to buy into that. If
you're not going to get your guys to run hard all the time, you might as well just not even mess with it. You got to get these guys, and I'm talking about sprinting. You can't jog the lanes. You got to get wide, but you got to really sprint those lanes. And if you do that, if you build that habit as a coach, it's going to give you some benefits in the system. But simply following a diagram or creating a pattern that looks like what we just watched is not enough. It's got to be done with intensity of sprinting that court hard. But sorry to cut you off there, Coach. No,
you're good. And, Hack, what I love a lot about this, and it's evolved for me as I've gotten a little bit better, and it's evolved our transition that you've seen. If you watch any film of us the last 2 or 3 years, there's a lot of different things that, we can do out of it. They can run their lanes and get where they're at, but you can either drag screen out of it or you can hit the trail and a guy can cut through and he can come up the rail for a dribble handoff. And I tell you what we've been doing a lot too is, that one guy, if he can't advance it, we want to advance it the first thing, but if you can't advance it, the 4 can trail and come behind and have a pitch behind and get it into a triple gap. And there's just a lot of other different scenarios that you can do. And a lot of times if that 5-man doesn't rim, when he rim runs, if he don't get it, he'll go into the dunking position and you can go slot, corner, and run a lot of different action out of that and have the floor space really well.
Yeah, so what Coach is talking about is we're looking at a video, and what the video is showing is a primary break, which is basically the structure of how we're going to advance the ball. And what's happened kind of in recent times, probably maybe starting with the D'Antoni teams that you talked about, was the idea of building off of this structure into kind of a secondary offense that flows. And now what you're seeing when you watch the NBA, and a lot of people are saying, everybody in the NBA plays the same way. And they're kind of right. They're wrong, but they're also kind of right in terms of nobody's walking the ball up the court and running a set play. Everybody is running hard in transition, some teams a little bit harder than others. And then they've got pretty seamless flow into getting into scoring actions and creating advantages. So Coach is talking about building on what we're looking at right now, building on a primary break system to put in some secondary flow that can happen real fast, where you're just drag screening, or there's different options based on where the ball goes. But that's really what we're seeing in modern basketball, especially at the higher level these days. A lot of coaches would assume that when you put in a heavy running game, your turnovers are going to be sky high. What's your experience with the relationship between how fast your offense wants to play and your turnovers, Coach?
Yeah, you want to play it fast, and I learned a lot of that at the PGC that we went to, and I've been to probably 5 or 6 camps, in the last 8 years or so. But I got a lot of concepts off that, as far as peeking down the floor, and I think a lot of those things help too. But I tell our teams we want to race the ball. But we want to race in control. And that's a big thing that it comes down to. And if you have a team that's just playing helter-skelter and they're not doing anything with a purpose, then if you play fast and you're turning the ball over a lot, then, it's giving the other team a lot of opportunities to come back at you. And people can go on those 6-0, 8-0, 12-0 runs very, very quickly. So it's just really training the kids to play fast, but also they're making good decisions and the right reads and decisions. So that's the main thing. They can do it, but it has to be something that you do every day. You can't just say it. It has to be within your drills. It has to be within your concepts, and it just really has to be simulated in practice all the time.
Yeah, and we've got on this video right now, we've got those 1 to 5 rim sprints that we're talking about. So these are my Aquinas teams from early in my coaching career, and these are the kind of clapbacks that I was talking about, where you've got that over-the-top pass for a pretty high-efficiency shot. Usually it's a layup, a dunk, free throws. Sometimes it can be hard for a 5-man to catch the ball on the sprint, find the rim, and lay it in. Some of my 5 men through the years have been better than others at finishing this play. But I believe this to be just a devastating part of building a primary break, where you're getting a layup right after a team scored on you. So building in transition, Coach, one of the things that really caught my attention with watching your teams was the fast break, but in particularly just the freedom that you allowed your players to play within the fast break. Talk to me about the freedom that you permit in your transition offense. And it's structured basketball, but also the players aren't feeling bound by that structure. So talk to me about a little bit there.
Well, that comes down to, like when I was playing high school basketball for my coach, and I played for a great high school basketball coach that had a system and worked really well. But a lot of times, coach, we were scared to shoot the ball out of the system, even if we were wide open. So it was one of those things. And the big philosophy that I've always had is I want my guys to play with high confidence. I believe players play better whenever they have the green light, if you will, and they play with high confidence. And I've always told my guys, I don't care what shot you shoot, as long as you believe you can make it. And that's one of the keys. And I never wanted our guys to be real robotic. I want them to be able to, make plays, play in a structured offense, but just have high self-esteem, high confidence to be able to, be an effective basketball player. And I believe confidence is a big part of it as well. And, our guys love that freedom. And now there's times that you got to settle them down, and game manage, if you will, and you work on all that. But that's really kind of the philosophy is, you want those guys to make plays and not just run plays.
Yeah, I think you had a great cadence with your teams there, where you were playing fast with structure, but there was also freedom very evident. Now on the video, what we're kind of looking at is, the first video that we were watching was a primary break. So we were taking the ball out of bounds and advancing the ball after an opponent's score. And that's a good starting place for a transition offense system. But if you really think about it, Coach, your transition offense, there's more opportunities in transition off of turnovers or missed shots than there are off of opponents' made shots. So to build out a system that can apply across both, where your players know what to do when the ball goes through the basket by the other team, and also when you acquire the ball off of a steal or a rebound, that's when transition really gets dangerous, and you have kind of all of those possessions covered, and there's a system to how you're going to attack when you acquire the ball in any shape or form. So right now we're looking at the rules and procedures for how you would attack getting a defensive rebound or a turnover. I would assume that your transition offense system extended into these situations that we're watching now. Is that correct?
It is. And I tell you, the verbiage from it came from a lot of your curriculum, Coach. You know, on misses, we would go in what we called fire, and yeah, we would get down the floor, and that's, you would hear, I would bark it out all the time. As soon as we, rebound, we're in fire, and that's, hey, we got the rebound and we're going, we're pushing, and we simulate that through drills, 5-on-0 drills through practice and different things. But that's been a great concept for us too, is just having the verbiage that kids know. And I go back to the PGC because I have a blend of a lot of the things that they teach in there. But if you notice on these teams, and even my teams, if you watch film, as soon as those guys get the rebound, they use the concept of peek. They're already using their eyes as weapons, and they're getting down the floor. And I think that's the big thing. Put that thing in power position, peek down the floor, and those guys run hard, and there's going to be some, opportunities. But that's all little things that build up to make a successful transition offense.
Yeah, I think when you talk about building a program, a commitment to this kind of running game can be like a program staple that you can implement from your lower levels up to your varsity. It's something that you can train on habit at your lower levels. But if I was getting into a new head coaching job and thinking about how I wanted to do things, one of my first commitments would be we're going to learn to advance the ball as quickly as possible from the lowest grade that we can have access to up through our varsity level. And I think that there's a few reasons for that. One, it's because it's relatively efficient to shoot fast. You're usually finding a lot of good shot opportunities by getting the ball up the court, whether it's open threes or layups. But I also think with transition offense, it exposes your culture a little bit. And what I mean is you have to be in shape to do this. You can't be out of shape to have a humming transition offense. So it kind of guarantees that your players are going to get in shape. And it also kind of teaches this next play element, where I know we've all heard of Coach K's next play concept, where if something bad happens, you can't sit there and dwell on it and cry to the officials and make gestures. You just got to move on and play. And what this transition system really does is, okay, we got scored on. We're not going to sit and pout and throw our hands up. We're going to grab the ball, run our system, and we're going to bring it right back at you. And that, in a nutshell, I think transfers over to this idea of everything in your program. We've got to move on. If bad things happens, we got to move on to the next play. What kind of cultural elements do you think happen because of a transition offense system within a basketball program?
Well, I think there's a lot of things as far as a culture standpoint. And you're right about the conditioning. And, my players over the years, it's one of those things where you incentivize them. Do you want to play this style play? Which, in my opinion, most kids want to play this way. And it's like, hey, the running and the conditioning is not for punishment, but it's to be able to play the style play that we want to play. And, so they buy into that. And that's one of the things, like if you're doing your drills full speed, if you got to run more and things, it's like they understand the process as we can play this way or we can play the slow way. And, I never want to play the slow way anyways, but I at least leverage that and use that against them. So that's one of the things as far as a culture standpoint of it. And what I love about this transition creates what I call a lot of times a balanced look. And it's one of those things where it's hard to scout. You don't know who's getting the ball. And I got one of the things that's helped me up over my career with my teams. And, is one of the things I got from you as far as the standards, expectations, accountability is we don't shoot my shot, we shoot our shot. And that's been great in the culture of everything we do as well. So, but as far as the culture level, that's why the transition offense is, it's really good for kids and programs.
Your coaching career, you've been a high school coach, you've been a middle school coach, you're a college assistant coach. Do you feel like you'd ever want to be a college head coach?
Well, I never say never on that. I'm learning a lot now. I've learned everywhere I've been as far as being an assistant. There's been a transition because I've been a head coach so long at the high school level, and being an assistant for Coach Pack is one of the mindsets I have is I'm going to do the best job that I could possibly do as an assistant. And I think with the blended experience, what assistants do well. And as a head coach, what you needed out of your assistants. And that's what I'm trying to bring to the table. But as far as right now, I'm continuing to learn and grow. And I believe that in coaching in general, you can't have an ego about yourself that you're not going to continue to learn. And that's one of the promises I've made myself through my career. Wherever I'm at, I'm going to continue to grow and learn. And I'm learning a lot under him as well. So, if opportunity presents itself, I think I would highly take a look at it. But I guess to your answer, it would be yes, I would. It just depends on the situation and if it's a good opportunity or not.
Yeah, I asked that because I'm thinking of if you took over a college basketball program as the head coach, where would transition offense fit into, items of being important in establishing your new team?
Oh, it would be at the forefront. It would be extremely important. And the speed of the game is just so much quicker from high school to college, even at the NAIA level where I'm at. And, you played at that level too, but the NAIA level now is it's a lot better than when we played, Coach. So,
everything usually gets better with time. I can only imagine. There's a lot of debate right now of LeBron against Jordan, who's the GOAT and stuff like that. It's so hard to compare because basketball is completely different now than it was when Michael Jordan played. And that should be the case, right? When people have a roadmap of watching players and watching basketball, they should be able to improve on it incrementally over time. And if a thing is still in the same place 30 years or 20 years, that's a big problem. There should be progress there. Hey, to segue here, I want to stick on transition offense, and I want to talk about building habits through some drills before we move on. In the first one here is this fire scrimmage. This is my go-to transition offense drill, and basically it's a 5-on-5 drill where even if the ball goes through the basket, we're going to practice those fire principles where we're executing, running our lanes and making decisions and reading the court in real time. So make or miss on these baskets that we're watching. The other team is going to transition down the court as if it was a miss, and we're really working on those principles. So this is great for conditioning, and it's great for getting your kids to kind of figure out the court and execute their role on the fly. Had you used something like this in your coaching career?
Yes, we use it all the time. We run it on 5-on-0, and then we'll get down and we'll run it 5-on-5 just to kind of simulate those concepts. But we do this drill every day. I mean, it's something that it has to be done every day to continue to learn and then understand the concepts. But we use a lot of those drills, and we do a lot of 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 as well. So to have some of those concepts. So. Those are like non-negotiables every single day that we would use those.
Yeah, that fire scrimmage we just watched would be a daily drill for me. And that's really that fire concept of we acquire the ball on a rebound or off of a turnover. How do we transition forward? What's our decision making? What are our rules? It's really ingraining those habits. You had talked about these 5-on-0 cycles, which I'm a big proponent of. And it's a different kind of thing where there's not as much conditioning as that fire scrimmage that we just watched. But these fire cycles really train players to execute this primary break where your point guard's catching it on a banana cut or in the outlet box. They're looking to kick the ball up the court. So you're establishing, running those lanes. This is something that you would do on a daily basis, or maybe not as often.
It'd be something I do on a daily basis, just repetition with it.
Yeah, and what I liked is there's a timing element, so you have to get through all 5 shots. Everybody gets a shot through the system, and you have to put the ball back in if you miss it, but you've got to get it in a timed amount. So, we would run practice with, 3 groups usually, and each group would just take their turn, and, everybody had to get it in time, or we would have to do it again. So it was kind of a simple segment. Get players moving. This could be part of a warm-up segment since it's 5-on-0 and there's no contact in it, but it's also goal-oriented where they have to finish it in a certain amount of time. We would run drills like this where we're just kind of working on, this is kind of a dry technique drill, but we want to work on grabbing the rebound at its highest point, going up and getting it. And then you had talked about the peak technique from PGC, where this is a lot of what we're practicing here, where we're grabbing the ball and we're immediately pivoting with the ball protected and looking to advance the ball up the court. So we're really training the habit of going up and getting the ball, pivoting to face up the court, finding our outlet and throwing the pass to somebody that's a moving target. And then on the back end of the drill, you're just working on some attacking moves and some finishing moves. But that's kind of a drier drill. But more of a competitive drill would be this Calvin. So Calvin is an interesting drill where it's basically 3-on-2 with help coming in a continuous game. So it gets very competitive where you're keeping score. We usually played this to about 21 points, but Calvin is really just the name for 3-on-2 help coming. And the interesting part about this is you're establishing some of these transition finishing habits. You're not replicating your break as well, but you're working against pressing. You're working on your press if that's part of what you're doing. And it's a highly, highly competitive game where the kids love playing it, but you're also pulling a lot of good things out of the drill. Have you used a continuous drill like this where you're doing 3-on-2 help coming, Coach?
I never used it at the high school level, but just looking at this drill, Coach Pack does this. We do this at the college level, and we do this every day, but this is the same exact drill that we run at KCU right now as well. But it is a great drill.
Okay, the last drill that we'd look at, we would call this rim runs. And what we're really working on is developing that habit with our 5-man to sprint the court. So they're getting a practice of making that outlet pass. We're putting our guards through some dribble cones just to have them practice dribbling with their head up. But this is really dedicated to our post players on building in the habit of isolating that rim sprint where they're catching the ball on the fly, they're sprinting the court as hard as they can, and they're having to finish at full speed. What do you think of a breakdown drill like this? Is this too much technique work in your opinion, or is this something that would fly in a Coach Maynard practice?
No, it did. We use this drill as well, and all these drills, and it's good foundation for the build up. I always say, you're building up to what you're wanting to do and building up to where it becomes kind of just like normal for them once they get into the 5-on-5 situations. And so you're drilling everything down, and then you're putting it together in a team aspect. And one of the other things that we didn't get to discuss too is just proper angles of screens and different things like that. This transition offense and the drag screens. And so, the one or is positioned to hunt the paint effectively and different things. So there's a lot of other coaching things that you got to kind of drill down to make everything just smooth and effective whenever it comes to game-like situations.
Okay, I'd like to move on from transition offense and get into a little bit of your life story here. You grew up in West Virginia, is that correct?
I did.
And, for people that have never been there, West Virginia is a unique place. Tell me, what is West Virginia? What are the people like there?
Well, the people in West Virginia, and I may be a little bit biased, but I think they're the best people in the country. I think they're hardworking people. They're good people. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. a lot of times like people will use West Virginia jokes all the time. It's fine if we use them to each other, but it's not fine if other people use them. But, it's a small state, a lot of pride. A lot of people have a lot of grit. And it's just a great state. And to be a small state, it's put out a lot of great basketball talent and also great coaching talent as well, and especially in football as well. You have a lot of big names to be a small state, but it's a good place to be. I know it's a cracking joke for some people across the country, but I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And I've lived a lot of places with with the way I've kind of moved and shaped in my life, but it's a really good place to be.
Yeah, we're looking at kind of the tri-state area on the map. So at Kentucky Christian University, this is kind of the area that school is located, where you're kind of in Ohio and Kentucky and in West Virginia. It all kind of converges into this tri-state area. I can tell you, coming from Northeast Ohio, I saw some things in the tri-state area that I didn't really know were out there. I got an education. This is a country. This is a country area, a rural area. There's the thick Kentucky accents, thick West Virginia accents. You guys love your Mountain Dew down there in West Virginia. So it is an interesting place. And I know that it is the butt of some jokes sometime, but there's been a lot of successful people that have come out of these areas. I know that people like Jason Williams and Randy Moss have been impactful in you and inspirations for you. You talk about Bob Huggins, making this area his home while he's coaching at West Virginia and all that. Tell me about some of the kind of inspiring figures out of this West Virginia area.
Well, I think it's a lot like some of the ones that you named. Obviously, Jason Williams, he was I remember being young, and obviously he's probably, 10 years maybe older than we are, Hack, but I used to watch his, tapes all the time, and just watching how he made these, crazy passes and things. And back in our day, I kind of was a huge and one mixtape tour guy,
Yeah.
If you remember there. And I used to just dribble all the time and try to reenact things that those guys did. And obviously Randy Moss, in my opinion, the best wide receiver of all time. And it's been really cool. But Huggins, and a lot of people don't know, but Nick Saban is from West Virginia as well. So he's from Fairmont, West Virginia. And there's just so many folks, so many coaches that have done well from this state.
Yeah, when I think of West Virginia, I don't think it's one of the most affluent areas of the country. We're talking about more of a rural place. You didn't grow up with a lot of money. Talk about how, growing up in West Virginia shaped your environment.
Well, I think it's, for me, I think a lot of people in West Virginia struggle. Even people who have money, Hack, they have money for around here, but in the whole grand scheme of things, they don't have big time money. Like if you would go into Florida or California or different things. But, I think it's one of the common denominators where you're just kind of accepted. I grew up without resources, without money. I mean, to classify it as we were dirt poor would be accurate. And, it's one of those things where people just kind of, help each other. And that's kind of where you associate with each other. And I will even say the people, that have better resources and things. And I know for my life in general, when I look back on my journey, even my high school days, my middle school days, I didn't have much. And a funny story here is, if you remember the shoes that light up in the back whenever when you walk, you had those. I think they're $1 General, but where I came from, back in those days, they'd give you a voucher, and that's for the poor kids that couldn't afford clothes for school. And one of the things on the vouchers, I think back then, you just got to pick from maybe one store. It's a lot better now, by the way, but you could pick from one store, and the only thing in there were the shoes that lit up in the back whenever you walked. And when you're a freshman in high school, Hack, you're not very cool when you're going down the hall and you have shoes that light up in the back. So being the guy I kind of was just goofing off and making fun of them, like, I'm wearing these, and but people always accepted me, and I kind of was the class clown, kind of was the funny guy, and a lot of times I used humor to mask a lot of things that was going on with me personally. But it's really neat how people treat you. And I look back at my friends now, and that had stuff whenever I was younger. They accepted me and they were a friend to me, and they let me in their crowd. And that is a huge part of why I probably ended up where I was.
Yeah, I think growing up with not a lot of resources kind of opens up a role for sports to play a bigger picture in your life, where it gives you an identity, it gives you purpose. You have these different coaches in your life that are impactful to you. Kids that are well off and they have everything they need, they don't need as a coach as much in their life to shape them. But people that are lacking in resources, often those are their best chances to have a great role model, is through their coaches and teachers and things like that. So tell me a little bit about the role that sports played in this world of West Virginia living.
Oh man, it's I believe this in my whole heart, Hack, is sports in general, not just basketball. I played football, basketball, baseball. I love basketball the most, but it saved my life. It really did. And anytime I could get in between the lines, and I tell that to my players all the time now, if they're struggling with things, is, for 2 hours a day, if those are the best parts of your day, and whatever you're going with is you kind of get your mind off of it. But, if I didn't have sports and, people that was able to take me to and from games that maybe knew my situation, and I probably wouldn't have made it. And I know that there's a high percentage of people who have addicted parents. They end up addicted as well. And I never wanted to be that way, but I had sports to fall back on, and it's been a blessing. And the good Lord was looking out for me, in that stance, and it was a lifesaver for me, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely involves community building, where you've crossed paths with all these people that have taken an interest in you, maybe because of your life or maybe because of your athletic abilities. But all of a sudden you're crossing paths with these people that are helping you get a ride, or they're giving you advice, or they're training you in basketball. And I always felt throughout my entire life, there was a therapy element of just going to the gym and working by yourself and practicing your shots. It's kind of a soul cleansing experience to just put that time in, and you being kind of 1-on-0 with just yourself and the ball, and maybe a nice soundtrack of music behind you. But I think the element of using sports to find these mentors and find a network of people in the community that are willing to help you and support you, buy you things if you need them, take you places, come watch your games. That can replace so much for people that, might not have the strongest home life. Does that fit kind of your situation, Coach?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You look back on everything, and I really look into it as look at my players the same way. I'm always looking for the Todd Maynards out there. And I think that's extremely important. I love them all, but the reason why I get to be able to do what I do, and I truly get to live my purpose now. And I believe our purpose is always shown to us at some point. But I get to kind of help, kids who were a lot like me, and sports was just so important. And I tell you another thing that sports did is a lot of times whoever coached that sport was a parent, in youth league especially, that most of the time they had it together, and being a kid like me who lost both of their parents to addiction and lived in to a home that was adopted, and they used us as a source of income and didn't really care about us and abused us every day, was I had the opportunity to see how other people live their life. You know, I was kind of like a fly on the wall. They didn't know they were impacting me, but I was watching how dads presented themselves with their kids and how they were part of their lives and different things like that. But it provided me. So I like to say my mentorship came from a lot of coaches and a lot of teachers that never knew what type of impact they were having on me, but I was watching them and kind of developing their attributes. And it's kind of like basketball. You're in your toolbox. You're making you're making your skill sets, and that's what I was doing, was kind of trying to build my life at a very young age by watching what was normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, your childhood involved foster care. It involved a lot of instability. There's addiction happening around you. I'm real interested in just what's the day-to-day life actually look like for you growing up in West Virginia?
Well, growing up for me, there's a lot of things, and I could, go on, and we could be on this thing for about 6 hours talking about a lot of different things. There was a lot of bad, but a lot of good came out of it. But I think a typical day for me growing up was I witnessed my mother's addiction, witnessed my father's addiction, and they loved me very much. I mean, they really did, but they were just addicted. So I would just kind of get myself up. I've thought about that, and I told my wife, not too long ago, is I never really was able to be a kid. I've always had to take care of somebody. I had to take care of my younger brother and sister. But, even when I was young, while the adopted people were partying, I would have to get up and get my brother and sister ready for school, because that's the way we ate, and we wanted to go to school so we can eat. And so, a typical day was a struggle. You knew every single day was going to be a struggle, but you got to continue to get up every day. And I believe that having my brother and sister being younger than me and knowing that I had to be that person for them really motivated me to not give up, to not do any of those things, and not to get on drugs and alcohol and become like everybody that was around me and who was kind of raising me. But a lot of tears, a lot of stress, a lot of mental things, but also a lot of drive that came from it as well.
Yeah, you're in an interesting position where you and your siblings are going through a foster care situation. At some point, you're getting emancipated when you turn 18 and you're making a decision to go to school. You choose to go to Kentucky Christian University, but then you take on this responsibility where you're trying to pry your siblings out of the foster care system. Is that correct? You took a guardianship over your siblings, your younger siblings?
I did. It was so I've always been Chad and Kayla's protector, and I got old enough to where I could go on to college, so I can actually get out of that environment. But it killed me every single day. I went up to Kentucky Christian University and was playing football and basketball up there, and I've always kind of been their protector, and it would kill me, Hack, just knowing that they were still back where they were in that bad environment. And because I took a lot of beatings for them, I was the one that took a lot of beatings for them, being abused and different things. But it was tough. And I can remember this while I was at KCU, and I had one of those small, if you remember those small like Motorola phones, those little razors or whatever. But I had a bunch of missed calls from my sister that was able to call me on a landline or some way. And she was saying, please come pick us up. Please come pick us up. And then I knew I had to do something, and to dig too far into the weeds. But if the state of West Virginia is willing to give a 19-year-old custody of his younger brother and sister, you can imagine how bad the environment was. And I was able to get physical custody of them and take them up at Kentucky Christian University, raise them, and they put me like on a probationary period just to see how I do. That's why Kentucky Christian's so important to me, because they helped me get my brother and sister. They let me get into an apartment there on campus, but I showed the courts that I was mature enough and willing enough to kind of raise them, and then they officially gave me legal custody of them, and I was able to have them full time with me in a guardianship role.
Tell me more about this custody battle. You're fighting for your brother and your sister. How would a 19-year-old even know how to get legal representation to do some of these things? I'm sure you felt obligated to an extent as your brother and sister's protector, but how does this all work where you're able to position yourself to be a caretaker for them?
Well, it was one of those things where I really went into it, Hack, was I wanted to either try to get them or try to get them out of the environment they were in. Because they were telling me, and I would try to get them, on the weekends and different things. Because that first year at KCU, I was staying in the dorm rooms, and it was one of those things where you can't bring a girl and a boy to your dorm room, and it was one of those things where they were going through, and I knew what it was like, and they were just saying it's horrible, it's horrible, it's horrible. And so I was an emotional wreck about it all the time. It's like I felt like I wasn't doing them justice because I was out. I was living in a dorm, but they were still back there. And so, I had to get a hold of CPS, Child Protection Services, there in West Virginia, and they went up and did a home visit at night and found a bunch of drugs and things within the home, and seen a lot of the usage, what was going on, and it was enough for them to pull them out of that situation. So it was one of those things where if you call the CPS, they come and check it out. And, I was next to kin, so they let me have him on a physical basis. And then, was able to provide that. So that's kind of, how that little bit evolved. But I look back on it now, and, it's something I would do over and over, because family is the most important thing. And for them, and, Chad and Kayla, I'm more proud of them than I am anything. They're doing extremely, extremely well. They didn't fall into addiction. They didn't fall into that. And, they're doing great. And Kayla got married this past summer. Chad's the head of the grounds crew, and Kayla went and got her degree in early childhood education. So, we've very proud, and I say this with humility, we broke the generational curse that was in our family.
So we're looking at a picture of part of your crew here. You've got a big crew, but you mentioned Chad and Kayla, and Chad is the gentleman on the far left with the beard, and Kayla is the short girl standing in front of him. You're 19 years old. Chad and Kayla are living with you in an on-campus apartment while you're trying to play sports in college and do college school work and probably work to make money. How do you juggle all that? How did you do all those things?
Well, honestly, man, there's no really thing. Is just you got to do it, and there's no special sauce or special formula for it. It's that that you have to do it, and you have to compete for your family, and you've got to figure that out, So it's just one of those things where I love my family so much that I knew that this is something that had to be done.
You'd mentioned earlier in our conversation that your mother passed away on your birthday, and I believe she was buried on her own birthday.
She was.
How does that shape your relationship with time? How does that shape your relationship with gratitude? How does that provide you purpose in life, that experience?
Yeah, it was hard. It was when it was on my 10th birthday is when she passed away, and I can remember her a lot. My brother, they always say I have a memory a memory of a sponge, but there for a long time, Hack. I'm 39 years old now. I let it bother me. I never really enjoyed my birthdays because it made me relive an experience that was just really tough on me. I love my mother. And it was one of those things where just losing her on my birthday was, a birthday never felt normal. But as I've gotten older now, a little bit more mature, and I've had my family, I have my kid, I have my 3 little girls, is, on that day now, on July 1st, then we go and we hang out and we have a good time, and I don't let that damper my day anymore. I've learned to have a little gratitude, and now that I've gotten a little bit older and have a little bit more wisdom, the good Lord was always, what I say is saying, I got you. I didn't know it at the time, but he did. He had me. And, now I just get to enjoy my birthday, and it's still in the back of my mind. Don't get me wrong, but I get to enjoy that day with my family now.
Yeah, I just can't imagine being 10 years old and trying to process what was happening in your life at that time, and then carrying that weight to have that day where it's supposed to be a day that celebrates you, and instead it's turned into a day of, loss. And you have to do that every year in and year out. How do you think that loss kind of hardwired the idea of being a leader? You are a dean of the School of Business and Leadership. You're teaching John Gordon's leadership methods. You're in leadership positions as an AD, a high school coach, and all of that. Do you think your interest in becoming a leader and becoming a mentor stems from that experience at all?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And I love leadership. And one, I love the impact of leadership. I love, influencing and helping people around me and helping people grow. And I think leadership now in a lot of organizations is something that's lacking. And I think it's an important thing that we need more of. But sure, it's all connected with my blend of experience of, personal things in life and different things that I've experienced in the workplace and different organizations. But I think leadership is definitely something that I'm passionate about, that I believe in, and that I love. And it's served me well to always continue to become a better leader. And I can say now, looking at my career where I am right now, every job that I've ever have taken on, or any job that I have got, is because of, one, athletics that's led me there, and two is building leadership skills.
So you played both football and basketball at Kentucky Christian University. And to be able to do that, I'd imagine that you've had to have some success in your high school playing days. You were at Spring Valley High School. Did you attend different high schools, or did you stay at Spring Valley the whole time?
I was at Spring Valley for 3 years, and then I went over to Fairland High School in Proctorville, Ohio, my senior year. And so we live on that tri-state area. If you know, you can be in 5 or 3 states in 5 minutes. So Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia. So I was 3 years at Spring Valley and 1 year at Fairland High School.
Tell me a little bit about the exploits, Todd, as a high school basketball player.
Well, I loved high school basketball. It was my favorite part of the day, but it taught me a lot. And I played for a coach at Spring Valley. His name was Coach Gary Norris. He's an all-time, in my opinion, one of the best coaches ever that's came through high school in the state of West Virginia. He won some state championships at Vinson High School, and then Vinson, Buffalo, and CK consolidated to one school. It made it Spring Valley High School. But I've learned a lot from him during my days playing that I have now, as far as discipline and culture and how you implement things from a culture standpoint. But it was a great time. And I can tell you too, a quick story about Coach Norris and Coach Morrison was the assistant coach. They kind of knew my situation. They were, older coaches, but I love basketball so much, and we had a really, really good team. We were number 1 in the state there. I believe it was my sophomore year. So I came in. I was really good at football and basketball as well. So I come into the office, and I wasn't getting a whole lot of playing time. And I never quit anything in my life, but I wasn't playing a whole lot, and and I was sad about it, because you love basketball. But I remember going in to the office with my bag, and I said, Coach, I think I'm gonna focus on football and baseball. And he sat me down. He said, usually we let guys go. They're old school. They're like, hey, if they don't want to be here, we let them. So he sat down, and that's what he said. And he said, Todd, I'm going to tell you something. I said, yeah. And he said, get your stuff on and get out there on the floor. But he knew that I needed it, and that's one of the all-time stories. And he may not even know that, but I remember that. And, little decisions in life, like little things like that are big decisions in the grand scheme of things. But that's kind of a little bit of my high school. And then when I was at Fairland as well, I had a great coach there, and Coach Chad Belfield as well.
Did you prefer football or basketball when you were in high school?
I preferred basketball. It was pretty good, but I was probably a better football player. Baseball was probably my best sport, really. I played all three, which was what was ever in kind of in season, but I played basketball year round. Basketball is my love, and it's something that I did a lot on my own. If not to be funny, but if you've seen the story Castaway, where his best friend is Wilson and he floats away, I was that guy before that movie came out. I remember just having a ball, and just to get out of the house and the environment that I was in, I would just go up down the road, just dribbling my basketball all the time. So it really, basketball is, that Wilson was my best friend too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I never got into football. I obviously played basketball my whole life. I played baseball at Heritage Christian after I transferred there. I loved playing baseball. I was a pitcher and a center fielder. And I also had a brief foray into cross-country running, which was an interesting story because I was in Plain local school district, and my dad took the head coaching job at Heritage Christian. So I was in one of the bigger public schools in the area. My dad takes a head coaching job for the basketball program at a small Christian school. I decided to go over there and play for him, which was a great experience for me, something that I'll never forget, those memories that we made. But part of this arrangement of me changing schools to play for my dad had other kids in the community that he'd coached, and they wanted to come over and they wanted to play basketball for him at Heritage Christian. So they were good cross-country runners, and Heritage Christian didn't have a cross-country team at all. So my dad had to build a cross-country team because he had promised these kids that were wanting to come to Heritage to play basketball for him that he would create an opportunity for them to run cross-country. So you had to have at least 6 kids to have an official cross-country team. And guess who made up the team without a choice? I was voluntold that I would be running cross-country. And it was framed as a way to get my conditioning better for basketball. But I had some real memories of absolutely just mailing in races that I wasn't interested in, that I was only there for because basically my dad had promised some other good basketball players that they would have the opportunity to run cross country. But basketball is always a part of my life. Baseball, I loved it when I had the opportunity to do that. Cross country, I did it against my will. But yeah, high school sports, in terms of just providing an environment for a kid to grow in, where they're getting exposed to different people and different training methods, and the concept of being a part of a team and sacrificing for a team. All of those are just memories that have kind of shaped my whole life. And, as I stay in touch with the idea of coaching, it's something that's always on my mind, being able to have that impact and being a mentor to people. So you preferred basketball to football, but you were a better football player. What position did you play in football?
Well, you can't tell now, Hack. As you know, you remember me when I used to be able to run and fly and jump high, but I look like an offensive tackle now, but I used to be a wide receiver.
Okay.
So, I used to be able to run like the wind. And
is that where the Randy Moss influence comes in?
I did wear 88. Yes, it did. A funny story. My high school wide receiver coach one time, and I was a good football player. I wasn't a star player, if you will. I was in the state of West Virginia, I was really good at all three sports I played. But I remember my high school wide receiver coach, he said, "Todd, you know why you're so good?" And I said, "No." He said, "Because you think you're Randy Moss." So that's where that confidence comes in. So, I enjoyed playing football, and I can tell you, I love basketball the most, but there's nothing. It's true, like Friday night lights. There really isn't, to play on a Friday night football game. The atmosphere, the energy, the community. It's an awesome feeling to play under the lights and play football.
Yeah, especially in a community like you grew up in, where I'd imagine the town closes down for Friday night and everybody's at the stadium. What was your favorite route? What was your best route as a wide receiver?
Well, my best route really was a curl route. I would stem it in. I'd run it about 12 to 10. So I would run a good curl route. I wouldn't kill you a whole lot with speed. I would play the Z receiver, but I ran good routes and I had good hands. So they tell me that's harder to guard than someone with speed. But we had a really good quarterback on that team, and but it would probably be the curl route or be like a wheel route. I'll run a wheel route there where you'd run a 5 and out and then go back up, and I'd have to trick people to be able to get a long play. And at one point at Spring Valley, if you look up Spring Valley, they have guys who's in the NFL now. But at one point I did hold the all-time record for 67-yard touchdown, but it's because the cornerback fell and I caught the ball and took it in. But
well, he fell because you juked him, right?
Yeah. I gave him a little bit of the business, went out, stemmed the 9, and then Spring Valley's had a lot of great. They built. We wasn't as good when I was there. The team wasn't, but it's a powerhouse program now in the state of West Virginia.
So we're moving on into your college athletic career. You played basketball and football at Kentucky Christian University while raising your siblings. How is that even possible, logistically, mentally? How could someone even do that?
Well, I think it's just developing a mindset. I really do. I think that's so important to, one, have a mental mindset of toughness. And I always prided myself. There was times where I would get down in the dumps and things, but I always knew I had to overcome things to be able to be successful. And you may not have all the resources growing up and different things, but it really came down to mindset. And I tell you, Hack, looking back, I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder. I always wanted to prove people wrong. I had a lot of great teachers growing up, but I won't say a teacher's name, but he associated me. I remember I was in 5th grade, and he associated with me as being part of that family I was with. He told me I wouldn't amount to anything, and it always stuck in my head. And I think sometimes that I just want to accomplish something, and sometimes maybe I don't do it for me, but I want to prove people wrong, if that makes sense. But that's a big part of it during that, was just competing for my family.
I definitely noticed, knowing you for a long time, that the surest way to get you to do something is to tell you that you can't do it. And I'm glad that I'm not the only one that picked up on that psychology. I wasn't the first person to tell you you couldn't do something. I don't know that your teacher was ultimately trying to help you. That doesn't sound like the same kind of situation, but it does sound like the same kind of mentality where you get this burning desire to do things people tell you that you can't do. Is that accurate?
It is. It's one of those things, and I've always kind of carried a chip on my shoulder, and it's probably that's what it relates to basketball as well, to grow up the way I grew up, and then to take jobs that nobody wants. And I think it's just one of those things where I like to try to prove people wrong.
So moving on here, Coach, let's transition. How did you get into coaching? What are your earliest assistant coaching roles like? When you started, did you envision accomplishing the things that you've accomplished, where you've led multiple programs, you've been to the state tournament, you've done all these things? Did you know you were going to be a coach, or did this something just kind of happen?
Well, I really didn't hack, and it was one of those things where when I first got out of KCU, as you know my story, I didn't have a whole lot of resources. I was poor as dirt growing up, so I wanted to make some money. That's the first thing I was thinking of is, what do I do to make some money? And always had decent communication skills, and so I went into sales. But I got with a company that was R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, and I moved out to Missouri, and I started my career. And that was a big time job for me. And Kayla was able to go with me, my younger sister out there, and so I started that into the sales world and the corporate world, if you will. And there was a guy that came back home that retired with R.J. Reynolds, so I was able to get back home, get back into the Ashland, Kentucky area, and I had a good friend of mine who was he was a school teacher, and he was coaching at Wayne Middle School. And he was coaching boys basketball there. And he said, "Hey, Todd, you played college, good buddy of mine. Won't you come out and help me?" And I said, "No, I don't really want to. I'm focused on other things." He said, so I kind of just did it as a favor to my friend. And I went out there, I started coaching, started being around with the kids, and really started just enjoying the process of it. And it was like, man, I started really soul searching. Like, I enjoy this. I like coaching. And the principal out Wayne was like, "Todd, have you ever thought about education?" So I was like, "No, not really." But I was doing well in the sales world, and then I started really thinking about it. And I had a tough conversation with my wife, and I said, "This is something that is I feel led to do. With my life and with things that's happened to me, I feel like I need to be a teacher and a coach." So I went and got my substitute teaching permit and started subbing school and coaching, and then finally got my professional teaching license in business education, went back and got that, and became a certified teacher, and started coaching from there. Because in the state of West Virginia, you really need to teach to be able to coach, and it just made it that much easier. But I left the sales world, and you can really equate basketball to sales too. So I've used those experiences as far as becoming a coach. But to your question, I never really seen it and really thought about it, or didn't have no desires to be a coach, but I got into it. And it comes back to what I said earlier. God will show you your purpose, and he showed me my purpose, and that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, considering all you've accomplished in your coaching career, thinking back to your early days of being a middle school coach and an assistant coach, what are some things that you really learned during those developmental periods of your coaching journey that have stuck with you through your coaching career?
Well, it's really a lot of blended experience. I've learned how to be I believe a good assistant coach, and what all that entails to be able to do. I learned a lot of what to do and what not to do. So that's helped me along the way as well. But I went from a middle school coach. Then the next year I became the head coach at the middle school level, and then I went to be a 9th grade head coach, and then a couple years as an assistant coach at the high school before I got the head coaching job. But along the way, I've always learned something that's helped me grow and learn. But it's been a great process. And I was thinking about it. I've really I've taken the what you would call the long approach. I've hit about every level, as far as middle school, assistant to head coach middle school, to 9th grade coach, to assistant coach, to head coach, and now college assistant coach. So I've had a little bit of a grind there, and I've moved relatively quickly, but it's been really good, man. It's been a blessing. It's been fun.
Yeah, I can remember in my coaching career, I consider myself a program builder. I consider you a program builder, but I want to get into these lower levels and work with them and make sure that there's production happening where the players are getting trained to be future varsity basketball players for me. And I remember getting with one of my middle school coaches early in my coaching career and explaining all this stuff to him that I wanted him to do and how it was going to work for the varsity program. And he was just like, "I'm just trying to get him to run a play out here." And I'm thinking, I'm out of touch because I'd never been a middle school coach. I made a lot of assumptions that were probably wrong. And he kind of put me in my place of saying, before we can do all this stuff you want to do, coach, we've got to understand the level here. And that kind of stopped me in my tracks. As somebody who never coached middle school, I started right at the varsity level as an assistant coach, and then got a hold of my own program as the head coach. That you really got to factor in what these different levels are and what they can accomplish before you can start trying to boss them around and get them to accomplish things that are productive for the varsity level. At what point in your coaching career did you kind of decide, I'm ready to have my own program and start looking for varsity head coaching jobs? Was there a moment, or did it just happen over time, or where were you with that?
Well, I really, when I got into it and I started enjoying it, I've always been a strategic thinker, hack, and I always say I looked for my North Star, and I was pushing towards that. And, the middle school level, when I became a head coach at the middle school level, I was like, hey, my ultimate goal, my North Star is to be a head boys basketball coach at the high school level. So I was really training myself to prepare for that, continue to learn and continue to grow. And when the opportunity, presented itself with Tulsa, and I interviewed for that position and they gave it to me, I think I was 29, 30 years old at that point, somewhere around there, when I got my first head coaching boys job. But it's always been a part of the plan, and I think that's something that you got to continue to build your skills and be ready for the opportunity ahead whenever it comes. You can't wait for it to come. You got to kind of plan and know what you want to do and have that North Star, if you will.
So you get this opportunity at Tulsa, and how do you go about interviewing? If we're getting back to some of these ideas about Powerhouse program building, what was your approach to make an impression for them to be able to hire you for that job, Coach?
Well, I think the first thing is really like what you talk about, your references and doing a good job where you were. And I was fortunate enough that Tulsa was in the Wayne County district where I was teaching Wayne. So Wayne County consists of 3 high schools, Tulsa, Wayne, and Spring Valley. So I was kind of fortunate enough to kind of already be in the Wayne County system. And Tulsa is one of those places where a lot of times they don't hire an outsider. I was an outside hire. But as far as interviewing, it was one of those things where I was leveraging relationships. And I came prepared. I came prepared with like a portfolio. I came prepared with all those things. And at that point, I didn't have anything besides assistant coaching to really kind of set myself apart, besides the culture things that we've implemented, the things to prepare to be ready for that job that I could talk about in an interview. Because one thing you can't beat in it, that is an experience, So it wasn't like I could walk in there and I was proven at the high school level. I really had to sell myself within the interview to say, hey, I'm ready for this job and I'm ready to be able to build it, and I'm going to work hard to do it. And you may be taking a bet on me, but I'm going to make you proud. So that was kind of the thing there. And got that job in the first year. We struggled a lot the first year, but we were winning a lot behind the scenes, which was great too. And then we really turned a program into something.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things, because I'm working with a lot of coaches that are trying to get a job or their next job. And, they a lot of them are talking about getting beat out by guys with experience. And that's a real thing. A track record, a successful track record, is hard to erase if you don't have any experience. But you have to understand there's 2 sides to that. And that is, if you don't have a track record, that's where you can really sell a vision for what you're going to build. So if you can sell a vision and you can present a plan of action, there's really no way they can tell you that you can't do it. If you'd got a head coaching job and you went 2-20 in your first year, that's going to be a stain on your resume, as opposed to having no track record where nobody can say, there's no track record of failure here to run off. But you'd mentioned references, and my big point of emphasis is cultivating your references around heavy hitters, where you've got basketball coaches, athletic directors, superintendents, even people in the community. So if you're talking about this Tulsa job and you know people in that area, even if they're not basketball people, if they're big, if they own a business or if they're a big part of the community, that can be a great reference going into an interview. So you had good references. You had some people that could call on and that were willing to vouch for you. And the other thing that references really do is they can pull your application to the top of a stack of applications, where if you don't have a track record of success, your resume might look a little hollow. But if there's people that are heavy hitters that are vouching for you, you can get into that inner circle to be able to present your information to sell a vision for a job. So a resume on its own without a lot of activity, it's going to be hard to be able to even get into that final group to present to an interview committee. But if there's somebody that's key in the community and they're saying, no, you got to take a look at this guy, even though he doesn't have experience, you got to take a look at him. There's something there that can get you in a room, and then it's on you. Your references can't get you the job, but your references can put you in a position to sell a vision, which will allow you to get a job. So you took over Tulsa, you're 29, you're 30 years old. I think before you took over the program, they were 9-13. So not a tremendous amount of success there. What did you kind of see walking into the doors of Tulsa?
Well, one, I was excited to get the job. I mean, I really was, and I was excited to build something in my own shoes. And I knew from a leadership standpoint, going in and getting the job, that one, everything is going to be on the standards and expectation and the culture that you build. And I do believe this, and if there's any advice that I can give through my career, is a lot of times you hear the buzzwords of culture. You hear coaches talk about that all the time, but culture is not one thing. Culture is everything. It really is. And it has to be something that you create, but you also got to believe in, and you got to live it every single day, and you got to live it every single day in what you do. And I think sometimes it, you know, it's a buzzword to people. It's like, hey, we got culture. Well, all right, but you're not doing anything to, one, continue to have it stay on fire, and you're not living it every day. You might just say it, and here's the standards and expectations, and then you don't do it anymore. But I found the success for me at Tulsa that first year. I had a really young group that had a lot of potential, and it was funny. They didn't win a whole lot of middle school games, you know, and it was funny because some people would say, hey, what's going on? I'm like, well, I've taken over a team that, you know, come from 2 feeder schools that maybe have won 2 games in the last 4 years. So it's like, we got to develop this thing. But we developed a culture that was, one, it was on positivity. And you mentioned before about John Gordon, and I'm a huge John Gordon guy. I'm certified trainer with him. I've, you know, went and done that. So I can do different trainings on Energy Bus, Power Positive teams, Power Positive leadership. But a lot of that helped me as well develop that culture. And, you know, it has to be not just any culture, because there can be negative culture and there can be positive culture, and it has to be positive culture. And we just did a lot of things behind the scenes, even though we wasn't winning as much and we were close, but we continued to live that standard and expectation every single day. And the next 3 years, we were in the top 5 in the state all 3 years. And we had a brutal section. Tug Valley and Man was in there. Man had a state championship out of those years, but all the top 3 teams were all in one section, and we were one of them. But, you know, we went to the regional championship versus Williamstown High School and lost by 2, overachieved in my second year. And it was all because what was the foundation of building the culture and what you're doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on at a later date and go through some of that Energy Bus curriculum with you, if that's something that you're allowed to do.
Sure. Yeah.
How long did it take for your kids at Tulsa to start believing in what you were doing?
Well, I think the first thing is, and where I was at Tulsa, it's a different type of, it's a more rural kid. I really enjoyed my time. When I was at Huntington St. Joe, is more of a city kid, and kids are kids. You love them all the same. But out Tulsa, it felt like there was a lot of Todd Maynards, and one, they found out that I just didn't say it, but they knew that I loved them, and I truly did. And kids know if you truly love them or you don't love them. But whenever they figured out that I was truly there for their best interest and that I love them, then that was the easiest thing for me, and for them. And then you created that buy-in, but it came down to, I say 3 words all the time, is love, serve, and care. And that's what we did with each other. And we created a culture of buy-in to where we all loved each other. We'd compete against each other, but we all had that one thing that was called love. And that was really the main thing within it as well.
So you had the team ranked in the top 5 for 4 straight years. What sustained the success?
It comes back to standards and expectations of continuing to do the right thing every single day, bring the program the right energy every day, the right positive energy, I will say, every single day, but and continue to work. Those kids would work, and they might not have been as skilled, but they overachieved and they beat a lot of teams that they shouldn't. And this is not to brag, but if Tulsa was in Class A, Single A is one of the, there's 4A in West Virginia. There's Single A, Double A, Triple A, and 4A. Well, Huntington High is one of the top programs within the state of West Virginia. At Tulsa, we come in a David and Goliath story, and that's a big thing. We were always, if you want to say, arrogant enough to believe that we could win, and we had that optimism and belief. But we went up there, and if you ever get a chance, you can get on YouTube and check it out. But we went up there to Huntington High School and ended up knocking them off, and it was a huge. They went to the Final Four that year, but it was an awesome experience to go in and one of the biggest wins I probably would say in that school's history as far as regular season. But there's been some great quality wins from the Single A, and that we beat some teams that we shouldn't have.
So Tulsa is the first opportunity for you to kind of build your own thing as the head coach. And I'm interested from kind of a Powerhouse program building perspective. What were some of the initiatives that you put in for either on the court or off the court that were kind of blueprints for your program? It might be, a culture piece. It might be fundraising. It might be, something uniquely yours that you did with this program. What would that look like, Coach?
Well, I think when I think back and I look at everything that we did, where I have that business mindset as well, there was nobody in the state of West Virginia really kind of doing what we were doing until we implemented it. But I really was big on making the kids as big time as they could possibly be. So we had we did a light show in there. We redid locker rooms to make it big time. We would spotlight them. We got a big projection screen that came down at Tulsa, and we'd do a hype video. And we started a broadcasting course out there that one of my buddies, Justin Prince, actually took over. So he would do the video. So the fan experience to the kids, if you would have went to a Tulsa game back then, you would think that you're at a Chicago Bulls game. That was the fan experience, and nobody was really doing that. And we did that. We'd have coaches shows, player shows, post-game shows where they look like they're in the NBA and they're up there with tent cards. And so we made it as big time as we possibly could make it. And I think those things were important as well. And a quick funny story hack, Tug Valley was Tulsa's rival. Great program, great, well coached. They've won the last 2 state championships here in Class A. But I remember their head coach came to me. His name was Rabbit Thompson, a great coach, older coach. Learned a lot from him as well. But they had to start they had to change their lights and everything and drop their lights down and start doing all that stuff because they were getting complaints that Tulsa down the road was doing it. So he probably thought he might lose some kids because we had a light show or something, and thought they might come my way. So they actually started doing that as well.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the things that you're talking about. And in my coaching career, I didn't do the kind of game day experience that you're talking about as big as you did it. But I believed in, a first class program of we're going to have Nike custom uniforms and Nike warm-ups, and we're going to deck out our locker room. We're going to have a TV and couches and graphics and all that stuff, where kids could really take pride in the experience that they were having, and like the look good, feel good, play good kind of concept of things. But all of that fits into the same bucket, which is we're a first-class team. We're running a first-class program here. If you don't want to be a part of it, that's your loss. If you do want to be a part of it, there's a standard that you got to meet to do that. But when, you're trying to sell a vision for a program and you send your kids out there in ragtag, off-brand, dusty practice jerseys, I think it's sending a message. And I don't think that's the message that you want to send to kids, because 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, they love the nice things. They love having the nice things. And if you can really build up your fundraising, you can provide that experience. So that's really interesting in how you were able to differentiate yourself from different programs in the area with that game day experience that you provided, how innovative it was, and how other schools in the area really had to copy you to keep up. Is that accurate, Coach?
That is, and I don't want to take all the credit and be egotistical about it, but it's one of those things where you see it a lot now, and we were kind of the pioneers that really did it. And even when I went down to Huntington St. Joe, we got a big Jumbotron, and it was awesome, and it was a good thing with revenue, with fundraising, selling digital ads and commercials and things. But we did it on probably a bigger level when I was down there in the city, where you had a little bit more resources and businesses and things. But all that stuff ties into when I go back to it, you think about it, it comes back to being a program coach and not a hobby coach.
Yeah, that's a good transition for us here, because you built this program up at Tulsa, and you make the decision to go to Huntington St. Joe. You're the head coach there. You're also the athletic director. Talk about the decision to leave your former school and go to a new school and taking on a new challenge of becoming an athletic director.
Well, it was one of those things where Tulsa, like I said, I would have said I probably would have stayed at Tulsa my whole entire career, probably. But it was what you've seen my family. We're a blended family. We have 5 kids, and Tulsa was one of those places where I was traveling 45 minutes up and 45 minutes back every single day, and I had one gym. And if you can imagine trying to girls basketball practice, cheerleading practice, there was times where I would leave in the morning and my kids would be asleep. And when I got home, my kids would be asleep. So when the opportunity presented itself at Huntington St. Joe, and I actually took a teaching job at Huntington High School, but when that happened and Huntington St. Joe's basketball program was, available, and it was not a good program at the time. They were really, really struggling. I would say the program was on life support, but I believed in myself, and I knew I was 10 minutes away from the house compared to 45, and gave me a little bit more balance with my family. And I decided to, go to Huntington St. Joe, and we put a lot of good things in places and a lot of exciting things, and kids started, coming into the program, and we built pretty well.
Yeah, life can dictate your choices, as we all know, but you only put yourself in opportunities to do that and take advantage of that by the success of building the program up that you did when you got your first opportunity. Tell me about kind of the new challenges that come with overseeing an athletic department on top of coaching.
Well, it's funny how the athletic director job came available. It was one of those things where I just took the head coaching job, and around August or something of that year, my first year, the athletic director and the head women's basketball coach left, and they had a great women's basketball program. I think they won like 10 state championships down there, but he left to take a job in Tennessee, and he is also the AD. And it was one of those situations where the administration really didn't have anything. And it was like, hey, would you do this? And I did it. And, and I really enjoyed it. So it kind of fell into my lap, and I learned a lot along the way, a lot of different things. But what I really enjoyed about the AD job was always had a good judge of people. And I was able to hire every coach that when a position was available, I was able to put that coach in place. And I really enjoyed that. And you've seen all the sports kind of do better by the program coaches that you put in, whether it be, baseball or middle school basketball, which they're doing great now too. But, it's one of those things you can look back and say, hey, I was the one that kind of put the personnel of the leadership for those things to thrive.
So you took St. Joe to 3 state tournament appearances, coming into a program that wasn't exactly humming. There's a difference between taking over a powerhouse program and sustaining that success versus building it up on your own. What did the program need the most when you first got to Huntington St. Joe?
Well, it really needed, a whole overhaul. When I came in, and you can see in the background of that gym where the Jumbotron is and things in, but it really needed a lot of different things. It had a lot of tradition, but I don't think it had maybe a coach in there that came in and had a lot of vision for the behind the scenes and everything that involved. But I remember walking into the gym and it just looked very, very bare. The rim was crooked. There was a lot of different things. I know that sounds petty, but it was like, wow, this place needs a major uplift. But I think things like that. And, I will say between a public and a private school, there's usually more opportunities within a private school, that you're in the city. You have more access to kids if they wanted to come play for your program because you done well or they like the style play or anything. When you're out Tulsa, even if you could have the best program in the world and maybe kids that want to come to you can't come to you because their parents are not going to send them 50 minutes down the road and 50 minutes back. So that was one of the things there was build a brand of basketball that people would be excited about and people wanted to come to.
Yeah, let's have that conversation as a nice transition here. We both share that experience where my assistant coaching position was at kind of a rural public school, smaller school. I got my first head coaching job at a smaller private school. And my next head coaching job was at a very large public school. And there was definitely differences in that. I would say on the surface level, the big school coaching was a lot different because there's just so much going on. There's a lot of distractions from actually coaching because there's just always something going on in the building, always something going on with your kids. Certainly the benefits of big school coaching is that it's very front and center. A lot of the media attention goes to the bigger schools. So you could play these kind of huge rivalry games in front of big crowds with a lot of media attention. But talk to me a little bit about the differences of coaching public school and private school basketball.
Well, it's different from a standpoint. Now, we were in the St. Joe was also in Single A. They were in Class A as well. So, I stayed at the same level. I kind of stayed in the same region and section as, Tulsa and, Tug Valley and those teams. It was a little bit different between how a private school operates and a public school operates. So you had to really learn that what you were accustomed to maybe in the public school, the private school completely does things differently,
Yeah.
So it was, kind of one of those things and those transitions where you got to kind of adapt and learn I would say the private school way. So there was a little bit of a learning curve for that as well.
Yeah, I definitely felt the same exact thing. My first head coaching job was at a smaller private school. And I had all this energy. I wanted to do all these things. I didn't even really know what I was allowed to do, but I know I wanted to do a ton of stuff. And the private school approach was kind of like they were happy you were going out and doing stuff, and they would rein you back in if you went a little bit too far. And then going to a public school from there, it was more, by the letter of the law. And I'm not talking about I did illegal things or anything like that, but there was just a lot more structure in place about going and getting things done. And, there was a real openness to be innovative. And I didn't feel stunted at either of my places and try to innovate and build a program. But I felt like at the private school, they were basically okay with stuff until they weren't. And the public school was more concerned about you getting out of bounds with things before you did them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I share the same thing that you do there. And as far as a coaching standpoint, it was one, I've never really truly, I've always set the expectations with, the program, even with parents and different things. But a private school, you do have kids who pay a premium to go there. Public school, they don't pay. So sometimes there's a little bit more incentive that, hey, we pay here, we should play, and different things. So you have to deal with that a little bit on that front. But and that you wouldn't have at the public school. But I never really had a lot of problems with parents, if you will. But that's something that definitely happens on that side from a private to public.
Yeah, I definitely felt that way. And, we won our district 4 years in a row at St. Thomas Aquinas. And you can believe, by year 3 and 4, there were kids knocking on the door wanting to come play at the school from different areas just because of the amount of success that we were having. And I definitely felt that to an extent from the community over there, where it's like, you didn't build up this thing with our kids just to slot in other kids ahead of them, So I felt like they're justified in a way because they have been sending their kids to the private school all the way since elementary school in different parishes. And I understand that, but also it's kind of a contradiction because I'm here trying to build the best program I can. And I don't specifically have loyalty to kids that have been in the feeder programs. I'm trying to build the best basketball program. Certainly, I like kids that work hard and that I've had a lot of experiences with. I want those kids to have success too. But there was kind of a conflict of, we've built this program up to a point where it's attractive to bring new students into the school, some of which play basketball really well, and how that kind of battles out within the community of, adults feeling like they have some kind of entitlement to roster spots or playing time or things of that nature. Did you come across much of that?
Oh, absolutely. It's no brainer. I enjoyed my time there. We've done a lot of great things. I think the team that we've, assembled, and like this year, they are probably one of the favorites to win the state championship, and I'm excited for those guys. But it's definitely a thing that happens. It's one of those things where, that's where I think that administration is very, very important. I think that, a lot of times, and I learned this a lot from you and early on was, when you go for a job, make sure that they have good administration as well, because they can really make you or break you as a coach, depending on their support or their non-support. So I think that's important. But definitely at the private school level, you are going to get some kids that maybe have been there through kindergarten and feel like they're the next ones up. And in basketball in general, coach, only 5 guys can play at a time. So it's not like one of those other sports like football and baseball where you have 11 and 9 and and most of the time you only play around 7 or 8, if you're being real competitive. And that's the challenge. And one of the challenges there was we built something great. People want to come be a part of it. And, and sometimes that's a blessing and a curse, if you will, in the private school setting.
Yeah, some states, they're going to have separate tournaments, one for public schools and one for private schools. Do you think public and private schools should be playing against each other for a state championship?
I do not believe they should be separated. Now, I got the blended experience from both sides. I do think that if we're being completely honest, even I was a private school coach, I was a public school coach. Private schools, they may not say that they do, but they do have an advantage because they are in the city and they have more access to the masses of people. And if a kid wants to choose to come there, and they can say they're a small school or whatever, but they do have an advantage. There's no question about it. And I've always been honest. And I came from the other side where we had to play against private schools, and it's so I understand on the other side as well. So it's one of those things where I do think that West Virginia has done a really good job of trying to create that competitive balance. And they've went through a lot of structuring and a lot of back and forth and different things. But I do believe that if you're extremely, extremely dominant, then they need to look at maybe raising you up in a class or something like that. But definitely in the single A, you do have an advantage to be very, very successful.
Yeah, I would say I love the idea of public and private being able to compete against them. I do think there's got to be some kind of better filtering mechanism for who gets to compete in these tournaments. When I was at St. Thomas Aquinas, we did it with mostly our community kids. We had feeder schools that were all Catholic schools, and all our kids came in. We didn't really import kids at the varsity level to come in and play basketball. These were Catholic school kids, but we would go into a tournament and we'd play against some of these rural public schools, and they're fans and their parents would be screaming at our bench, public school, private school cheaters, private school. And I'm like, dude, I'm not even, we're not bringing kids in here to play basketball. These are just the kids that go to the school. But I also felt like there's a difference when you're coaching at a community school and you've got the best players from your community, and then you're going into a tournament game and you're playing against a private school that has the 12 best players from 12 different communities making up their roster. It makes for some fun competition, especially when the public school can pull an upset against a juggernaut like that. But at some point, some of these private schools need to elevate out of just the common basketball. And it's go play a national schedule. If you've got the best kids from 12 different schools and you're bringing kids from across the state to play basketball, go play in a national setting. Don't come and compete against communities that are just playing with the best kids that live in their area, probably minus their best player that has been poached off to a public school. That's my end rant on public versus private. You have anything else to add?
No, I agree with everything you say there. It's there's pros and cons to it, and I get it too on the public standpoint. And there was and I will say this, where I came from public school to private school, sometimes private school coaches are like, hey, ex-nay them, don't talk to those guys. But I always had a good relationship, even as a private school coach, because I built a lot of good networks and relationships with public school coaches. And they also knew I did it the right way. And I would also, say what's on my mind. And I would tell them I wasn't one of those private school coaches that said, hey, I don't have an advantage. I would say, hey, yeah, they do, so I was always honest and call it the way it was.
Yeah, I think there is a difference in public versus private. And I think the biggest difference is the type of kid that you get. At a public school, you've got to take all kids. You've got to educate all kids. Private schools, you have that filter in place where you don't have to take a kid. So, what would happen is a lot of the kids that I worked with in the private school setting, they had a stronger foundation at home. They had good discipline. They had good habits. And then going into a public school, you got kids that were all over walks of life. Some of them had support, some of them didn't. But, trying to work with a group that's kind of aligned from their background standpoint versus working with a group of kids that have backgrounds that are completely different. That can be pretty challenging at times. Do you agree with that, Coach?
Yeah, I do. You do. Kids are kids, but you do get a different kid, and you're getting it now. I don't want to say that the private schools where I was, that we always had what we call the top of the top income kids, because you don't. You do have some, but you also have some kids that what I call, there is also Todd Maynards of the world in private school. And, they give them opportunities to be in a different situation than they would be maybe on preference from a public to private. But, you do get a different type of kid, percentage wise, that you do from a private to public, for sure.
So I wanted to kind of circle back and talk about the Powerhouse program building. You were my original guinea pig before I was even trying to market this as a product. How did you think the framework of this product helped you get organized to get a job and build a program, Coach?
Well, it really provided the framework of everything you need. I mean, it's one of those things where it's everything's under just one huge document of everything you would need, and you can look at that and you can tailor it towards, your core values or what you want to do. But it provides that framework and that layout to whenever you're developing mine. Now, I developed one, and, I would omit and look at things and look at fundraisers we did, but it helps to really build your program by just seeing that. And the investment is worth it for anybody who's trying to get a head coaching job, or even if they have a head coaching job right now or assistant job, to go ahead and get it and start implementing and building that out for themselves so they're prepared and ready. But it's great information. And if you're serious about basketball, if you're truly serious about basketball, it's something great. And it's not something I'm just saying because I know you well and you're a buddy of mine. It's something that, they're definitely beneficial for coaches to get.
Yeah, so we're looking at the table of contents from the portfolio section of Powerhouse program building, and it's going to go over things like your basic resume and references and what you believe in as a coach and what coaching means to you, and different ways to distinguish your program, how to promote your program, how to build your youth program, seasonal planning so that you're doing the right things at the right time of the year. It gets into actual basketball philosophy here in the defensive and offensive philosophy. It talks about how to build up your fundamentals within your program wide, skill development, vertical programming, which is something that I'm a big believer in, which is basically you're building this funnel where kids are learning different skills and schemes and culture elements at the younger levels that all build on themselves, so that kids, when they get to the varsity level, they're prepared. They know the drills, they know the expectations. The scheme has been aligned in a way where they've been running since 7th grade, maybe not your exact varsity offense, but maybe like a scaled down version of it, where you hit that first practice on the varsity level and these kids have been in the system, and it's the learning progression is just so much shortened when you do things that way. But it's talking about how to handle your scouting and your strength and conditioning and personal development with your players, your fundraising, ways to approach your community, how to handle your assistant coaches, relationships with players and parents. And what I'm proud of probably the most is, there's a lot of ideas and theory in here, but there's an appendix of documents where basically if I'm trying to tell you how to run a fundraiser, it's because I did it. And the documents are all in there. You can go look at the flyer and you can go look at the format that we used. So all of the ideas are kind of supported by documents within it. So you took a framework like this that I sent you and you built your own. I know that you have too much character to plagiarize a portfolio. So you built your own off of, my example. What kind of sections did you feel like were real valuable to leave in, and what of those sections that we just talked about or feel like you might replace it with something of your own ideas and your own thoughts?
Well, I think a lot of it was just really diving in and showing the diagrams of things and getting in there and showing kind of the wrinkles and getting there and changing, some things around and looking at the framework. But I thought all of it was extremely, extremely valuable. One of the things that, not that you plagiarize, but there is things within there that I'm going to be completely honest, that most people don't know, but to me, you're one of the better people who is very, very skilled at creating things like this. There's the average Joe coach may, I don't want to say average Joe coach, but the coach may not know how to make things like this, and because it takes a lot of time to be able to do it. And one of the things that I always recommend, and I don't know if you did, was making this kind of where you can come in and edit it, not that you'd have to create all these documents, on your own. You can kind of take it and use what you will and plug and put things in where you can actually, type into it instead of trying to create this thing all by yourself, which I think whenever I got it, I had to do that myself because I never had it that way. But it was really good for me because I could sit there and think, and it's a progression of as you continue to learn. And this thing's not built overnight. It's something that you continue to add to and take from and things like that when you're building your portfolio. But, that's some of the good things about the Powerhouse program that I kind of seen on there.
Yeah, that's a feature that has been added. So there's an editable version of the coaching portfolio when coaches invest into Powerhouse program building. So they can basically go through section by section, and they can eliminate sections if it's something that's not important to their vision. They can add sections. They can use my words as kind of a basis for what they want to talk about. But all of that's in there. And I think that just a coaching portfolio in general is just such a powerful thing, because you get it in an interview committee's hands and they see that you have a plan. They see that you have clarity. They can see what you want to do. Just the idea of them knowing that you're prepared to take over a program by putting a document in their hands is a major advantage. And that doesn't go to say that the things that you're going to talk about in your interview, a lot of them are going to come from your portfolio. So you have this crystal clarity on how you want to run a basketball program, and you've developed it by putting it as words on paper. So I'm scanning through here, Coach. This is your case study that we put together, but there's dozens of these up here for coaches to look at, different coaches that have gone through Powerhouse program building. There's some of these interviews here that kind of show the documents, so it'll scan through them a little bit so that coaches can see a little bit of this isn't it, but there's a lot of these case studies examples in here, and I really appreciate that you were willing to do one for me. And I do feel a lot of satisfaction knowing that it might have helped you a little bit get your first job, and off and running, you went building programs after that.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you another thing that this goes to, Coach, that a lot of people don't know is a lot of times when you're interviewing, now there's some times where you may be interviewing with people who know basketball, AD, but sometimes you're not. I mean, sometimes it's a principal that don't know anything about athletics. They only know academics. And it's one of those things where they enjoy to maybe they could look at something and look at that, and they will appreciate, they can skim through that and use their academia, to read it and look at it and say, okay, because they may not know what questions to ask or anything, but they'll at least set you aside and say, hey, this guy has a portfolio. He's looking at it. He knows what he's doing, and they can kind of read it, because that happens too, where sometimes you're interviewing a job, and you may be interviewing with a administrator that has no clue about basketball or athletics.
Yeah, generally you get that in an interview setting where the AD is going to ask you AD kind of questions. The principal is going to ask you, how are you going to work with teachers? Each person in the interview committee kind of has their own different angle that they're going to approach questions from. And I think a document like that gives them kind of ammunition to test you in each way. And if you've done this the right way, you're going to be able to represent yourself really well, not just to the basketball people in the room, but to everybody in the room. And we both know that, when you go into an interview setting, you've got some challenges to overcome, but for the most part, they're not asking you, hey, draw up Princeton Chin for me. Draw up a sideline out of bounds with 6 seconds left and your team's down by 3. It's a lot more bigger picture ideas of what you're going to present. They may, in passing, ask you about schemes and stuff like that. But if you think you're going into an interview and it's going to be you lecturing them on how basketball should be played, that's not the case. That's never been the case. It's not going to be the case. It's going to be a lot of these things of different people that have different interests trying to draw out of you how those interests are going to come out in the community if they put you at the head of the program. Hey, I really appreciate your thoughts on that. I do want to kind of transition and get back on track now. And what I want to get back on track with is your current job. So you've transitioned out of high school basketball. You've got into college basketball coaching. Tell me about what our alma mater, Kentucky Christian University, is like present day.
Well, one, it's, if you go there, it looks the same. There's been, some upgrades to things, but it's still, the layout's the same. Everything's the same. The locker room has been, renovated somewhat. And so compared, but if you can visualize it, Coach, it's the same, locker room, but it's been, we do compete in NAIA now, which is a tough. We are in a conference, in the River States Conference, which is a tough conference. And I'll tell you, the speed of the game is so quick at the NAIA level. And a lot of it, too, is what people don't realize, and I think sometimes even with high school parents and kids, is a lot of more delusional about what NAIA basketball and college basketball is about.
Yeah.
Really, the portal and everything trickles down. So, NAIA now is getting some of the top high school basketball players. They also get JUCO transfers, but a lot of your top high school basketball players, unless you're like extremely, extremely special, a lot of times you don't start out at a Division I or even a Division II. And, a lot of those guys are starting off in the NAIA level and trying to show that they can do something, be through school, and then they, either maybe go on to somewhere bigger. But, it's been a transition. I've got to sit on the front row and get great experiences versus Division I programs. We played, as you can see there, we played Liberty University, which was awesome. We only lost by 10 to UNC Asheville. We gave them a little bit of scare. That would have been on SportsCenter if we pull that one off there. But it's been a great experience so far, and we're getting ready to get into our conference play coming up here, and we're excited about it. But it's been a new challenge for me, and it's been something that's been rewarding to kind of be with those guys and walk in the same halls and the same campus that they did.
Yeah, I would say throughout my coaching career, there was definitely some idea from some of the kids that I coached, and no offense to them, but they would have this mindset of, hey, I can just go play D3 basketball. And it's like, sorry, but no, you can't. D3 is a really good level of basketball. Just because it's not a scholarship level of basketball, that doesn't mean just anybody's welcome and you can just go walk on and play there. The Division III basketball in my area here with Mount Union and Baldwin Wallace, and there's really, really good teams, and it's nobody's fallback option. D3 is a good level of basketball, and the NAIA is a step up from that because you're able to give scholarship money for kids to come in and play. You've become an assistant after being a head coach at the high school level for a while. How is this different for you, going back to being an assistant at the college level compared to running your own show at the high school level?
Well, it's been a little bit of a transition. I mean, it really has, and that's just being honest. But I've really enjoyed it. One of the great things is it's been a perfect fit. Coach Charlie Pack, who's the head coach there now, we align on so much stuff together as far as transition offense. He is a great offensive coach. If you have a chance, look at some of his schemes and things. But he is extremely good within the spread transition system, modern day basketball. So I'm learning a lot, new wrinkles and things. But I really enjoy it because you can go out and you can, recruit kids. I'm learning new skill sets and just kind of add into that resume, if you will. But it's been a great opportunity for me. But it has, I'll tell you this, feelings are feelings. At the end of the day, when you're a head coach, you're a lot more stressed. I still take on the head coach personality as far as, expectations, even as assistant for kids. But I forgot what it's like to be an assistant coach. You build a really good relationship with the kids at that level, and sometimes you're the good cop compared to the bad cop.
Yeah, tell me about your role specifically. Are you doing recruiting? Are you doing player development? Are you helping with the offense, with the defense? Are you a jack of all trades? Tell me about your specific role.
Yeah, it's a little blended of everything. Even at that level, it's all hands on deck. I mean, it's one of those things where you do everything collectively, together. You bring your experiences in. So I'll watch film. I'll break things down. I'll refer recruits to Coach Pack. Ultimately, he signs everybody, and you do everything. I just drove the bus back from Ohio Dominican to and from Ohio Dominican University. If you can imagine me driving a bus, so you kind of just do it all. You got to, help do everything and support the head coach. But I will tell you this, there's a lot in coaching small college basketball, and that people don't realize what it is. A lot of times you think it's prestige as a college coach, and it's great for the opportunity. But like Coach Pack, he puts in a lot of time. He has to feed the kids on when they're out of school and make sure they're fed, 3 times a day. And he has to do the workouts, and it's a total team effort. But there's a lot that goes into it for sure.
You've been able to bring your family involved into your coaching, including one of your daughters is an acting manager for the KCU program. Tell me about that relationship. Tell me about your family. Tell me about this young basketball player that you have as a daughter.
Oh, man. Well, I am probably living my best life right now. As you know, I have 3 daughters. I guess I wasn't man enough to make a boy, but, so a funny story real quick. My wife, the gender reveal when we're there, at the gender reveal thing, and I'm looking and I'm like, all right, I'm going to have a Maynard boy here. It's going to be my basketball player. And it came up and it said, hey, it's a girl. And I just kind of I just went to drooping, man. And then I told her, because she has the other ones in dance and things. And I said, this one's mine. Sadie's mine. And she's going to do basketball. And she picked up on it very early. And as a coach, I've dealt with parents before that were a little bit delusional and thought their kids were better than what they were and things like that. And I told myself I'd never be that parent. I won't have those blinders on. But as of right now, she's 9 years old in her age group in this region. I wouldn't say she's the best player, but she's in the top of the top players in our area, which is really cool. But she works. She's a basketball junkie, like you say. She's in the gym with me all the time. I don't have to ask her to do it. She has my personality, which is kind of scares me a little bit. It's a good thing and a bad thing. But one thing, Coach Pack letting her be a part of it has been awesome, and she's not able to do that, but we're making so many memories that we normally wouldn't make. But her being out there and be a part of it and kind of being beside me, it's just been a blessing and great experience for her to do that and just be around basketball too.
Yeah, thinking about it from a program building perspective, a lot of the stuff that I'll talk about in Powerhouse program building, I'm advocating for a little dribblers program, which is basically you're organizing your youth players to memorize a dribbling performance that they're going to perform at halftime. And there's many benefits to it, but one of the big benefits is those kids are under the bright lights. They're out there on the court in front of a varsity atmosphere. And I feel some parallels in this example here, where just your daughter being able to be around a college game, to get to know the players, to be able to shoot on the court in between practice sessions or at games, like that has a value that you really can't quantify in terms of igniting her passion and having her feel comfortable playing in front of full stands and all of that. So I love that from that perspective for you. And also, anytime you can do anything and keep your family involved, that's such a special thing that you get to share in something together. It's good for your relationship. It's good for your family. I know a lot of coaches, they're on the road a lot, and basketball coaching is an isolating thing from their family. So to be able to have it where you're in this town that you went to college in, your family's a part of that. I think that's just such a special thing that you probably can't even put into words, although I know that you've tried here. Hey, I got a picture I want to show you.
Yeah.
And this is me. Man. This is me and you back probably 20 some years ago. What memories come to mind looking at this picture, Coach?
Well, one memory is I had a neck that I didn't know I had, right? So, but great memories, man. That's an awesome picture. I haven't seen that in a long, long time. But a lot of the memories that I remember is just the dorm rooms, the bus trips. A lot of times I don't recall a lot of the basketball things, like some things will hit your memory, but just the networks. And, one of the things I'll say about you, Hack, was that I always loved about you, and not to get cheesy as fluffy, so because I'm not the most cheesy guy in the world, but one thing about that is you truly believed in me, and you was my best friend there while I was at KCU, and I always believed in you, and you believed in me, and I looked up to you in the world of basketball and things. But what a lot of people don't know is you were one of the all-time best players at Kentucky Christian University, and I tell those guys about you a lot, but I think you had 2,000 points and 2,000 assists, maybe somewhere around there.
Now you're getting a little hyperbolic, but I did score 2,000 points and I did get 1,000 assists in my career. I was very fortunate to be able to start early on. I started right away. I came into Kentucky Christian and I had a rough adjustment period because I was 5'10" and not very athletic. And the guys at Kentucky Christian, we had guys like Tom Swart and Zeb Frazee, who were, 6'8" and 6'6" and skilled. And I wasn't used to finishing around the basket against that kind of size and length. So I felt like the first 3 weeks that I was there, I was in over my head. And I eventually got pulled aside by my coach and by one of our captains. And he basically said, hey, this is what we need you to do. We need you to organize. We need you to get the ball inside. We don't need you to do a ton of playmaking. We need you to make outside shots to keep the defense stretched. And I bought into that role. So I got to start as a freshman at Kentucky Christian University, basically being a table setter for our big men that were kind of our main options. And then I had 3 more years after that under a different coach who played a different style, which fit my skill set perfectly, where we were playing in transition. We were playing fast. I was the point guard, moving the ball ahead. And my skills, I could score the ball. My senior year, I averaged 17 points a game, but my best skill was passing. And I could get the ball to the players in the right hand at the right time. We had a lot of shooters to play with, which was very beneficial for me. So I could kind of drive in and collapse the defense and spray out to some very good shooters. So I did accomplish a lot of things at KCU. And a lot of it was, being able to start for 4 years and playing a lot of games. I accumulated a lot of stats, and kind of stylistically things broke in my favor, where I wasn't really ready to be all that as a freshman, but I could do the things that they needed, which was set the table. And then as my skills and my game and my confidence grew, I was in a position to take advantage of all that and really show all that I could do, which was to score some, but primarily set other people up and cause defenses problems by getting in their paint and collapsing and spraying out or dumping off to players that I developed a tremendous chemistry with over time. We're at the 2 hour and 30-minute mark. If there's anybody still listening, that'd be incredible. But this is your opportunity to do any storytelling you would want to do that would be appropriate for a live stream and not get me banned. Is there any kind of stories that come to your mind that we might be able to tell on air in front of an audience about our time together as roommates and teammates at Kentucky Christian University?
Yeah. I understand we're on live. So, one of the things was Coach Schaus. He took his job very serious. He was a players coach, which I know we both love him. As he's at Asbury University now, D3, and as the head coach. But we had a guy who was a ministry major that could do no wrong. His name was Seth Baker. I know you remember him. But we're in the locker room before a very, very important game, and he would always put the scouting report on the whiteboard. And Seth went in there and changed all the names of the scouting report and put like Kevin Garnett, 7'2", and just Michael Jordan, and just changed his whole scouting report up after he spent time and put all that on there. And I can remember he came in and looked at it, and he just snaps, throws a marker against the board and says, "Who did it? Who did it? I spend all my," he said, "this is all the money I get is for this basketball board," or something like that. And we finally, he said, "Who did it?" And he fessed up, and Seth Baker said, "I did it, coach." And he got so mad because he thought Seth was taking the blame for it. And so automatically, who do you think he thought did it? Was me, because somebody put on there, being funny, "If you want to win, put Maynard in." And, I wasn't getting in. So, so I think he automatically thought I did it because I was always the clown, and him and I were always close. So it was just so funny. And at the end, it was real serious. And I can remember you, Hackenberg, looking at everybody, said, "If you did it, go ahead and admit it." So you still use that saying to today, but it's funny. If you did it, go ahead and admit it.
Yeah, this was a rivalry game. This is one of our conference rivals, so it was a very serious game. It wasn't like it was some low-level team that we were going to trounce. It was a very important game, and the kid who actually did it, we were obviously all in on it to an extent because we were aware of it, but we weren't going to go erase what he wrote and write it back or anything like that. But the person that actually did it, it was so acharacteristic for them to do something like that it was a complete surprise. And we're looking at a picture of Coach Schaus, his wife, Whitney, and you on the screen right now. So we have a lot of great memories around Coach Schaus. I can remember getting off on kind of the wrong foot with Coach Schaus, where I was a worker. I definitely practiced and lifted and did all those things, but he had implemented a system where you had to record your lifting sessions and turn them into him. And I didn't understand the process. There was some, communication issue, but I was doing my lifting, but he called me in and was mad at me that I was, a starter last year, and I didn't care about the program because I wasn't even doing my lifting or anything like that. And this was like within the first 2 weeks of him taking the job. So I wasn't trying to like disrespect him or not do it, but I remember him like coming after me, and we had a very mutual understanding after that, where he understands that I wasn't trying to big time the program because I was a starter and he was coming in, that I was doing my work. I just wasn't turning it in the way that he was wanting everybody to do at that time. But yeah, so many good memories with Coach Schaus. Coach Schaus was in his 20s. I don't want to say wrong, but he was definitely in his 20s when he got his first college coaching job at Kentucky Christian University. They weren't paying him anything. He moved his family there, and he's moved on to be the head coach at Asbury, where he went to school. So he took over his alma mater, but he got his introduction into college coaching by moving his family to Grayson, Kentucky, at KCU. And they had really good memories there as a family. But Coach Schaus went on to coach at Asbury. He had his own son, Turner, who had a great high school career and ended up playing for him at Asbury. And I'm always drawn to those kind of stories because, I'm somebody that played for my dad. I transferred schools to play for my dad. So anytime these kind of father-son coach-player relationships, those always kind of perk my interest. Any other stories you'd want to share, Coach?
No. What I'd like to say real quick about Coach Schaus, as you know, and this goes into the relationships of coaches and like what we strive to be for. But Coach Schaus, a lot of times players move on and they don't ever talk hardly ever again. But Coach Schaus has always been there for me. He still contacts me. I still in contact with him, and he's just been a great blessing and a mentor over the years. And anybody I can, bounce ideas off. Before I took the KCU job, he's one of my first calls, and he never big leagued you. He was one of those guys where if you talk about a true player's coach and knew that he loved you and cared about you, it was Coach Schaus and Whitney there too. And you talk about a great family and a great role model. He's awesome, man.
Yeah, and I was talking about how I got some of my college game film digitized so I could watch it. So I started to watch a game or two. And what I noticed that I didn't really understand at the time was that Coach Schaus was ahead of his time in terms of modern basketball. We were doing blazing fast transition. We were doing a lot of 5-out stuff. We weren't doing a lot of set plays. It was a lot of motion and concepts that we played out of. But he played to the strengths of his players really well. A lot of coaches, they can overdo it with structure. They can overdo it with continuity patterns. And, he was really, for being a young coach that was getting his first experience at the college game, I had a lot of fun just watching us stylistically because a lot of the things that the Miami Heat or the Memphis Grizzlies are trying to do now as some modern twist on basketball, that's a lot of how we played. And this was 20 years ago at the small college basketball level.
Yeah, it was. And if you think about it, his transition's the same thing that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's he is one of the guys that really implemented that. And it's really the style of play that they're playing now that he played back then, which was awesome to see. It was a little bit of a transition coming from my high school where it was a little bit crazy structured than to coming to him, and it was wide open, and he let you play, that's for sure. And I know you benefited from many games from him letting you be able to play the game, and that fits your strengths for sure.
Yeah, and I haven't been able to keep tremendous tabs on what Coach Schaus is doing, but I do know that he at one point had the courage to do the Grinnell system. He was running the Grinnell system in college basketball and doing just the crazy pressing transition 5-for-5 type of subbing. So he's never been scared to implement or try new things. But I was just fascinated that so many of the things that coaches are trying to achieve now, I was a benefactor of that 20 years ago, not knowing even where the game of basketball was heading at that time.
Yep, absolutely. And another thing that I love about him, it's been about a year ago or so, but anytime that he's traveling and he's coming through Huntington on the interstate, he will call me and say, "Hey, you want to grab lunch real quick?" And the beauty of that is, at KCU, I wasn't a star player for him. We developed a good relationship, and not even being one of the top tier guys, he loved me enough to call me and still keep in contact with me. That just speaks volumes of him as a person.
Yeah, I want to kind of wrap this up here, Coach. And one of the last things that I'd like your take on is, you've had to overcome some obstacles to get where you're at. You've had opportunities to quit and tap out. You've chose not to do that. You've chose to take on leadership role after leadership role. What would your message be to somebody that's having trouble overcoming obstacles to achieve what they want to achieve out of life?
The biggest thing is it's my favorite word, and I use it all the time, is perseverance. I believe that basically promising yourself you're never going to give up, and you've got to promise yourself that. And what I've learned too, and I've learned through some leadership things, Coach Hack, was that you've got to, there's a thing that I heard, that you talk to yourself instead of listen to yourself. And I've learned that over my career is, when I talk to myself and I say, "Hey, you can do it, you can do this," and then when you listen to yourself, that self-doubt may come in, and you might listen to yourself and talk to yourself about why you can't be successful. And I think that's the main thing is, if I'm a young man or a young person trying to navigate through life, is one, your struggle's your story, and continue to use perseverance to get through everything that you can possibly get through. And there's going to be a lot of bad days, but there's going to be good days as well. And really cherish the good days and fight through the bad days.
Yeah, I think what the saying is, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're both right? Whatever you could set your mind on is probably what's going to happen. So you got to be positive through things. And kind of the closing bit of the show here is, after all the things that you've been through with your coaching, taking on Tulsa, taking on St. Joe's, being an assistant coach at the college level, why do you still coach? What is coaching to you?
Well, coaching to me is one, I love young men and making an impact. And that's not just a saying. That's something that is my purpose and what the Lord wants me to do, and I'm living my purpose. But also I coach is because I love the game of basketball. It saved my life, and the game of basketball has provided me an opportunity to make an impact on young men. And that's what I love the most about it. And I love to continue to stay in the game of basketball on the coaching side, and you get to live it every day and still compete every day. But also you get to help kids kind of navigate their way through life. And at that age, I remember when I was that age, it's tough. And what I've learned, that whether it's high school or college, from the ages of 15 to 23 or 24, a lot of those young men need some direction. And that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, you've got a tremendous story to share. I think we've touched on a lot of the key elements, but there's so much more that I think we could get into. I'd love to have you back and go through some of the John Gordon leadership principles at some point. But hey, I love you, brother. I'm really proud of you for all that you've accomplished here, and the opportunity to kind of share your story in this format is something that I take a lot of pride in.
All right, Hack. I appreciate you too, man. And I know always much love for me, and not just me, my whole family loves you, man. And I'm proud of everything that you continue to do with your channel and building the brand of Matt Hackenberg basketball. And I'm just honored to be your friend, man. I really am, and I'm happy for that.
Thanks, Coach. Hey, we're going to wrap it there, okay?
All right, man. I'll holler at you.
Have a great night, Coach.
You too, man.